Because like Proverbs says, when the righteous thrive, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan. And I think that's the situation we're in now. Yeah, there's a lot of groaning going on. I think we got some wicked people ruling us. We got to fix that, don't we? We've got to fix that. So I think that's why we're here today. So kind of the outline. I only found out today I was emceeing this. So I most of the time people just invite me and I come in and I talk and take questions and I move on, and work with the local group. So I just found out today I'm emceeing it. So I put together this outline this afternoon and I hope we loosely follow it at least. So we're having our welcome invocation pledge. We're going to do that and we're going to sing together. Because I'm a choir director and I miss it. So we're going to sing, all right? And then we're going to have Chairman Bill Bruck. He's going to talk to us about some of the legislation that's been going on in your state. And then Sean Smith, we're going to Zoom him in. He's an amazing guy. I can tell you about him when we get to that point. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of the news around the country. You need to know what's happening in the country. You need to know some data. And then Jennifer's going to talk. She's the one hosting this whole event. Let's give her a hand. I met her at the Cyber Symposium in South Dakota last year, and we've been friends ever since. She's going to talk about CTCL a little bit, and then Leslie Peterson, your canvassing report. That's really important. And Laura Lynn and Sandy are going to talk about the drop boxes experience they've had. Yeah, Jennifer, you're going to talk about auditor transparency, and then we'll have questions and answers. So how are we doing on that, Steve? Did we hand out the cards for people to write questions on?
We're going to hand out the cards. People can write questions along the way. We'll collect them.
Yeah.
And whatever ones don't get answered in the course of this event, we'll collect them and we'll prepare answers and get them sent out to everybody.
So we're streaming, and depending how these things go, they always run later than you want them to, right? But we'll try to answer as many questions as we can here. But if we don't get to them, that's the nice thing about writing them down, because then we'll answer them later online for you. And then we'll have a couple of announcements, and then we have a challenge for you. So that's kind of the outline. How about that? So why don't we all stand together, and I'll pray, and then we'll do the pledge and we'll sing. All right, so bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, it's a privilege to be alive in these times. Thank you for challenging us to engage our own government, to engage our own faiths, to engage our own journeys, to re-engage where we have disengaged before. Fill us with your Holy Spirit. Guide our hands, our feet, our minds. Give us wisdom. Make the right steps. Give us strength so we'll persevere through this time of trial. And we ask all these things in Jesus' name. Amen. Amen. Okay, keep standing. We're going to sing. Oh, we got to do the pledge first. Here we go. And there's this real flag right next to it. Okay, here we go. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I always emphasize republic. We're not a democracy. The CNN calls me a threat to democracy. Well, we're not a democracy, so I guess I'm not a threat. All right. Let's sing this together. My country 'tis of thee. Ready? 2 and my country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing. Take a big breath. Land where my fathers died, land of the Pilgrim's bride. From every mountainside, let freedom ring. Try this one. Our fathers, God, to thee, author of liberty, to thee we sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King. Thank you. Have a seat. That's fun. All right, so now we're going to hear from Bill. He's the chairman of Skagit County Republican Party and the Washington State Republican Party Election Integrity Committee. Thanks. I met Bill also. There you go, buddy. I met Bill also at the Cyber Symposium, didn't I?
You did?
I did.
Actually, we met before that.
Oh, we met before that. Oh, that's right. You were there, though. All right, very good. All right, so Bill's on. Oh, wait a minute. Sean's up. How you doing, Sean?
Sean's almost next.
It's Colonel Smith.
Colonel Smith. You got to come visit more often, because every time Dr. Frank comes, it's always 80 degrees and beautiful and sunshine. Am I right? I think you're 4 for 4 now, or something like that.
Something like that.
So first of all, I want to say a heartfelt thank you and gratitude to Steve and Jen Dunkel and the Mason County EIC for inviting us out and putting together this very important event. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be here, and so thank you. My name is Bill Bruck. I'm from Skagit County. I'm a business owner there. I'm a property manager. And about 7 years ago, I was deathly afraid Hillary Clinton was going to be president, and I started getting very, very active in politics. I'm a former LaConner Town Council member, and right after I joined the Town Council, I got recruited to be chairman of the Skagit County Republican Party. I first didn't want the job, but no one else took it, and I took it, and now I don't regret. But it's been 3 terms in 6 years. In addition to that, I was actually a candidate. 2 years ago, I ran for the State House of Representatives, Legislative District 10, which is Skagit County, Olive Island County, which includes Camano Island, and then the northwest part of Snohomish County, Stanwood, Warm Beach, that area. My race, we thought we hit every metric. I campaigned very hard for 13 months. We raised over $500,000, had over 500 people donate. We had a very good active campaign. We were expecting to win. And on election night, when 40% of about 8:15, when 40% of the vote was counted, I was shown that I was down by 3,500 votes. And my heart sank, and it wasn't because I knew I was going to lose. It was because all the people I felt I let down. And it was a very, very difficult night. We had a watch party. It was kind of sombersome, but we felt, Trump's going to win. It was looking good. We were watching him. I get home at about 10 o'clock, and I think a lot of you, like in the room here, I get home, and Trump is getting congratulated, I'm hearing, and then I get there, and it's like, wait a minute, they're stopping counting, and they're stopping counting in all the battleground states. And I thought, oh no, here it comes. We're in trouble. Next day, this huge spike, and we knew what happened. And from that point forward, I was tracking election integrity every single day. On my own, I was just wanting to know what happened. In Skagit County, we were shocked. We really felt Loren Culp easily won our county. Now, I'm not saying he won the governorship, but our county, I would bet a lot of money he won because 4 years prior, Bill Bryant ran, and he beat Inslee by 3 points, and Loren Culp had hundreds of signs, a huge ground game, major events, lots of excitement, and he lost somehow. So it just didn't sit right. It wasn't just Trump. It didn't feel right. And my race too, it just didn't feel right. So we on our own started forming an election integrity group, and we were watching, I had not met Dr. Frank at this time, but we were watching in January and December, or December, January, February, as we got into the year, what Dr. Frank was doing, and he was working in other states, Pennsylvania, I think at the time, and talking about canvassing. And we were also synchronistic events talking about canvassing. We were working with Glenn Morgan, and we decided it would be a great idea to canvass to try to help clean the voter rolls and see what we could find. And we were shocked because we started canvassing in the spring and it went into summer, and we ended up with over, last year, 1,500 anomalies and 1,750 affidavits. So anomalies, basically, I don't want to say it's a phantom voter. I want to be very careful because I personally knocked on about 400 doors of my own. It's not all fraud. I'm saying it's not fraud. But there was a lot of people that were registered to vote that lived at addresses that should not have been on the rolls. So we started doing that. Long story short, my consolation prize, the state chairman, Caleb Heimlich, said, hey, Bill, would you like to be chair of the state EIC? And I said, absolutely. So the Washington State Republican Party, that would be an honor. And when I inherited it, we had about 16 or 17 counties and about 20 people. I was recruiting and recruiting and recruiting. Now we're up to 37 counties and 80 people. It's a very, very active group. We meet twice a month on Zoom. And in fact, Colonel Sean Smith, who's going to be after me, has been on a couple of the meetings. Dr. Frank's been on a few of the meetings. And we are really diving into what's going on in the counties and in the states, and overall macro picture and micro picture every 2 weeks. And actually, Steve and Jen are both a part of that EIC. So during that process, I've learned a tremendous amount, and I'm very grateful. I'm a man of faith, and things happen for reasons. You know, it wasn't meant for me to be in Olympia. That's fine. So I embraced this new job, just like I am as a property manager. My job as a property manager is to fix things when they break. It's to make sure the tenant's happy, the landlord's happy, and I try to take that into politics, and I try to be a problem solver. So I'm a kind of person that if it's raining really hard and there's a leak, call the roofer, get it fixed. Don't say it's not leaking if there's a leak. And you can't fix anything unless you have accurate data, accurate information. I'm a truth seeker. Give me accurate data. I don't care if it hurts. Let's fix it. And you can't fix it if people say it doesn't happen or it's not happening or it doesn't exist. I will be the first one to say if it's not accurate, I will retract something if I say something accurate. If I'm giving inaccurate information, I'll make it right. But I'm always trying to truth seek, get accurate information, and then that's how you can fix things. And that's what I want to do. My goal is to help fix the elections. And I think Dr. Frank has a similar goal. I'm going to go in because time is a little bit limited. So I'm going to segue into a little bit about, I'm going to stay optimistic because I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of the things that you're going to hear over the next few hours are going to be very somber and very depressing. We need to stay optimistic. There's a lot of reason for hope. One of the things that, and I know this is on election integrity, but I'm just going to take a few minutes because we have to really, really thank Brian Haywood, Glenn Morgan, Sharon Hannock, Carrie Condata, Mike McKee, and several other patriots around the state that are working together on the Citizens Initiative project. So a Citizens Initiative is an opportunity for we the people to be proactive and do something. It's something that all of us can do. We can actually sign the initiatives in the back of the room, and I'm going to go through all of them very quickly, and then I'll go right into the election integrity. We'll roll up our sleeves, and we'll get right into the weeds there. But first I want to talk about this. It's really important to understand. In the legislature, in the State House, it's 57 to 41, and in the Senate, it's 28 to 21. The Democrats have a majority. They can do whatever they want. Now, the good news is, and I'm still very well tied in, I work with leadership in the House Republican organization. The House Republican organization spent $100,000 several months ago to do very extensive polling. Because of redistricting this year, they wanted to find out what are the districts they want to start working in, where are the best chances to win. And what we found was a generic R over a generic D is 10 to 15 points higher than 2 years ago. It is off the charts. We are ready for a red wave. We're going to have to work really, really hard, but there's a very, very good chance. All of the polling says that we have 14, we need to flip 9 in the House. There's 14 in play. Personally, I think we should take 11 at least. In the Senate, there's 7 in play, 7 districts. We can take 7 seats. Personally, I think we'll probably get 5, which means we get a Republican red wave. If that happens, and there's a lot of work we got to do, but I'm just saying in that scenario, a citizens initiative, you can actually, and this is where it's a great thing, and I don't know if you know this, but Inslee can't veto a citizens initiative. If we get enough signatures, and we need 325,000 approximately on each of these initiatives. I'll go through them real quick. Those initiatives will change the law immediately. They go right to the legislature this January, and if the Republicans are in control, they can pass them, and Inslee cannot veto them. It is an opportunity of a lifetime for us. And we have funding taken care of because of Brian Haywood and his PAC, Let's Go Washington. This is really a great opportunity, and we are just following the Constitution, okay? So just follow this down. Article 2, Section 1, first power reserved by the people is the initiative, and it's a guarantee of the Washington State Constitution. Citizens initiative can be signed into law by the legislator and can't be vetoed by the governor. It is a travesty we have some of these laws because of the majority party in power right now. One of them, public safety, so I'm going to go through these really quick, and they're on the back table, and I recommend you do your research on here. And if you go to letsgowashington.com, you can see all the initiatives. The Restore Police Pursuit, right now, the law allows people that are potential felons, they've stole something, they're speeding to 100 miles an hour. You can't pull these people over, you can't pursue them, and unless you have a probable cause, you can't do anything. So this would lower the threshold to where it was to reasonable suspicion. This would be a law that would be enacted starting in January. We can get it back slowly but surely to where we were. I'm going to have to go like this to go to the next slide. I-1512, keep guns from criminals. This one is the Second Amendment one. A lot of people care about their Second Amendment rights. What this allows is for felons and criminals to be prosecuted, not law-abiding gun owners. It's an important one. Make hard drugs illegal. Unfortunately, right now, because of the legislature, and this is actually a Supreme Court decision, this is part of the Blake decision, that make drugs illegal, or legal. So fentanyl, methamphetamine, and heroin, they are all legal now. So what this would do, it would change it to, if you knowingly have these substances, it's a misdemeanor, or from a misdemeanor to a felony. Back to where it was. Cost of living, so those are public safety. We got cost of living. Sales tax go down 6% to 5.5%. Cut gas tax to 25%. I'm sorry, 24.7 cents, skipped one. Property tax exemption. First $250,000 of the property tax is exempt. All of these make a difference. These are, and I have to credit also the House Republican leadership. These are bills that we have very good patriots, those 41 that I was telling you about earlier, and the people in the Senate worked really hard to get a lot of this legislation in there. So this would just be helping them get across the finish line. Repealing capital gains tax, it's an important one. Good governments, going into emergency power reform. Right now, our state is under 850 plus days of emergency powers. Insane. The founders of our Constitution, state Constitution, never ever envisioned anything like this. We have a dictatorship, and there's no reason why it shouldn't be 30 days. It would go back to 30 days, and what I like about this law is it would be per county. So if there's an earthquake on the coast in Aberdeen and there's a tsunami there, in eastern Washington, you don't call emergency. It's per county. Good government's curriculum transparency. This would get curriculum, instead of be secret, it would be put out on the internet. The parents could see what their kids are being taught. This should be a no-brainer. Okay, let's go into, well, where's the last one? There's two more. Sorry, I skipped them. Okay, two more left. Electoral college allocation. So this ties into election integrity. Right now, Washington State is a winner-take-all state. In other words, we have 12 electorals. In a situation where it would be like Maine or Nebraska, it would go to a representative or a proportional. So each congressional district, the way it would work is if you win, the Republican wins, you get one vote. So instead of 12, in the last election, Biden got all 12, Trump got 0, so there was no voice for the state of Washington. It would have been 8-4. This is something that I think is a little controversial for some, but I think it would be a very good fix. Personally, I would like it. I think it's more fair. Voter Protection Act. Okay, this one I know quite a bit about. I actually helped write it. So the Voter Protection Act is I-1505. One of the problems we have right now with our audits is, or the elections, is they say there's audits, but there really aren't. So there's what's called a risk-limiting audit, a random batch audit, and an LNA test. The LNA tests are not audits at all. All the LNA tests do are they look and make sure that the calculator is working. They test the machine, and on that day, they feed ballots in, they say, yes, it tabulates correctly. That's all it is. That's not an audit. The other random batch audit is approximately 300 votes for the entire county. That is not statistically significant. That's not an audit. That's not enough for me to feel comfortable that an election was safe. And the risk limiting audit is the worst of them all. It's actually statistically 0.1%. It's a computer algorithm called Arlo, and the Arlo program tells the elections official which ballots to pull. As an example, and this was a pilot program started by George Soros, who was funded by Soros through Voting Works in 2019 in the battleground states. Last year in Washington State, it was a pilot program in several counties. To give you an example, in Thurston County, one election, 60,000 people voted. The risk limiting audit was 63 ballots total, and that's supposed to make us feel comfortable about an audit. That's not an audit. So what this particular initiative would do, it would give substantial audits. Every single county, and the Republicans and the Democrats have to work together. So every single county, 39 counties, have 3 elections minimum and more if they agree, overseen by a company in 12 precincts, 5% minimum of the vote total. Before certification, it's a recount of the hand recount of the actual paper ballots. No images, nothing waiting after certification. This is before certification. So this is critical to understand that it's a shot across to the bow of the cheaters. If there are people cheating or being nefarious, this would be a situation where every single county, if you're the Republicans, you pick 6 precincts, the Democrats pick 6, you work together, and you could target specific races if you think there's something nefarious going on, and you can challenge that result if the audit doesn't come through. Company gets to oversee it, and they do a report to the legislature. That's those initiatives. So they're a package of 11. I highly recommend going back there and signing them. So some of the good news, again, being optimistic, a lot of the very bad legislation that didn't get through, that's election related. Right now, I'm sorry, skip one ahead. We did stop some. So our advocacy group stopped several, and our good Republican legislators stopped several. As an example, SB, which is Senate Bill 5540, relating to dates and timelines associated with the operation of state primary, they wanted to change it to August to May, and then the filing from May to February. And in that, the auditors would have the ability in writing to change precinct boundaries. So what's happening at the state level is the Auditors Association is trying to diminish the PCOs, and the auditors are getting more and more power, trying to take away from their PCOs. They want to increase precinct size, which is the exact opposite thing that we want to do, and they want to be able to have unilateral authority to change boundaries. Ranked choice voting, it's a terrible idea. It's failed in pilot programs. It's a bad way to conduct elections when the best candidate may not win. You have people voting for the third best. It's you rank them. And it also justifies computer algorithms. We stopped that. Odd year elections, they actually tried to have initiatives and referendums only in even number years. That was HB 1727. We worked hard on stopping that. That's an attempt to limit the power of the people and thwart the state constitution. And the auditors went along with it because they want to minimize the extra work. Concerning repeal of advisory votes, they also wanted to stop advisory votes. We were able to keep that going as well. Now, some of the bad news. Unfortunately, some new legislation did get through. First one, 1876, the AG writes initiatives and referendum language that is actually on the ballot. So Attorney General Ferguson gets to actually say a little story to try to persuade the voter in how to vote. It's not a good situation, and it is new law.
On the ballot?
On the ballot itself. That is a law. HB, just for initiatives and referendums, but still, it's bad. HB House Bill 1068, which is retroactive. This was probably the worst of the worst, and it started a domino effect. So, unfortunately, Kim Wyman at the time, who was our Secretary of State, was supporting this. 2 years ago, it went through, and it was not very good at all for election integrity, because what it did is it exempts election security information from public records disclosure, completely exempts it. And in addition to that, It was the precursor to HB 1953, which was passed this year, which even codified it more, and it's making it more and more restrictive to do any audits of any elections. We, the people, should have the ability to look at our elections, and we should have the ability to question our elections, and if we see some issues, we should be able to have an audit. And our state legislature is taking that ability away quickly. In addition to that, it gets worse. So this is a new WAC. WAC is Washington Administrative Code. This, I don't have time to read all three, but the middle one, just to give you an idea of where it's gone right now. This is what will go into effect. This is code that upholds the new RCW, the Revised Code of Washington. So it says now, and this goes into effect potentially next week. County auditors shall not provide physical, electronic, or internal access to third parties seeking to copy and or conduct an examination of state-certified voting systems or any components of such systems, including but not limiting to voting software and systems, tabulators, scanners, counters, automatic tabulating equipment, voting devices, servers, ballot marking devices, paper printers, portable memory devices, and any other hardware, software devices being used as part of the voting system. That wipes out any potential audit. And this could go into effect next week. It's very scary what they want to do. And it's still, this is amendment to the WAC. There still is a chance, and I don't mind if you guys take screenshots, but Tuesday, July 5th, there will be a public hearing. We're doing everything we can to stop it. Brad Clippert, who's a very good patriot, Eastern Washington State Rep, is going to be helping in Olympia. It's going to be in Olympia, but you can go online or dial in, actually, and it's all the information's there. You enter the conference ID code, and then you can hopefully they'll be able to hear you, and you can comment, and we can try to stop this legislation going forward. The author of this, Stuart Holmes. So Stuart Holmes works with the Secretary of State, and he got some help, I think, from Vicki Dalton, who's one of the auditors. She's the auditor in Spokane County. The reason I say that is because Vicki was already implementing a policy like this because it was her interpretation of 1068 and 1953 that she could do that. So if we can stop them, let's try to stop them, but unfortunately that's just the trend. More concern, in addition to that, if that wasn't bad enough, just found out in 2021, if you go to, and I'll just real quick, I can pull this up. If you go to the website, to the archive results, okay, go to 2020, and you can pull up any county. I'm going to pull up Mason. So go to general, go to results. Just going to give you an example of what's happening here. Select the county. Scroll down to Mason.
Went too far. There you go.
And in 2020, do you see, and this is, every single county had this, precinct results of every single race. And it's very easy to see. Every single race, you can just pick one. Let's just pick one, let's just pick Congress. You click on precinct and it's all there, right? Very easy to see. Every single precinct in every single county, every single race, very easy to see. And as a candidate, it's very valuable during real time, during counting November 3rd, 4th, and 5th. You want to look at your precincts and see where you're doing well, look for trends, and see patterns, and hopefully find out maybe next time you could do door knock there or mailers there. It's very, very important. Well, guess what they did in 2021? Go to 2021. Select county. It's all gone. It's all gone. And this is every county in the state, okay? So you scroll down and it just said statewide, statewide. So your precinct results are gone. Now, the question is, why would they do this, okay? I found this out a couple months ago by accident with Skagit. I thought if it's happening in other counties, I looked. The only other county that I was able to see that it wasn't happening because they've already had this as a policy is King County, okay? Which is another red flag for me. So what are they trying to hide? Why don't they want this information out? It's always been out before. There's no reason why it shouldn't be there. Now, they have to follow an RCW. They have to publish it. So what they do is they publish it up here with CSX and XML files. So CMX and XML are common separated values and extendable markup language. It's difficult to navigate, and they're spreadsheets. Now, if you're a tech person and you're really into it, not okay, or it's probably okay, but most of us, but it's the entire state, and it's hard, it takes hours to go through this stuff. So, and hackers now potentially, and the powers that be, can manipulate the results. My concern is if this is not up in real time and they're posting this after the fact, I'm not going to I'm sorry, I'm just not going to trust this. Dr. Walter Doherty just did a very extensive paper in Maricopa County. The same thing is happening in Arizona, and I'm wondering how many other states. I've talked to a couple county auditors. Skagit County said, hey, it was just the Secretary of State, and I made a couple other calls. They're looking into it, but we're going to track it. I have a problem with that. It gets worse, broken laws. Okay, the Washington State County Elections and County Prosecutors, via public records requests, admit 2020 voting machine election logs were deleted entirely, or they're unable to provide them. They weren't backed up in at least 22 Washington counties. The illegal deletions occurred between December 20 and May 2021. This violates federal law USC 52, 42, 2 WACs, and an RCW. You're required, any federal election, you're required to keep election records for 22 months, all election records. How many of you knew this? Good, now you all know. These are the counties. There's the list. So we have a lot of Washington State counties. If you can see, middle column here, those are the auditors, and the right-hand column, those are the voting machines. In Washington State, we have ES&S, it's only in a few counties. We have Hart Intercivic in several, and clear ballots in 17. So most of these are clear ballot, but there's several also Hart Intercivic. So the same phenomenon is, and we have one Dominion, and that's Franklin County. Same thing happened with Dominion. Dominion's on there. So what's happening? Clear Ballot and the Washington State counties say deletion was due to a software upgrade to each of their election machine system. So now these election records are completely gone for good. Web activity logs and events that occurred during the tabulation of votes, and they're essential to keep, basically they're a link in the chain of custody to make sure that the election was secure. They're called different things with Hart Intercivic. Web activity logs, however, are in the manual and Clear Ballot, and they basically, after me, Colonel Sean Smith is going to comment on this and why they're so important and why they shouldn't be deleted. Not just that they obviously broke state and federal law, but why. The failed login attempts, unauthorized user, somebody wanted to be nefarious, and they went in and manipulated any results. These are logs that are an audit trail. It would be a great way to track these and find out if any nefarious actors went in there and changed our results or manipulated the results. But they've deleted the information, and the counties did not back them up. It enables display vote totals to see the results, and it allows access to the scan server where the election data, ballot images, and votes are stored until tabulation. If accessed externally or even internally but prematurely, it would be in the web log. So if these are so important, why are they deleting them? Okay. Public records requests also show Hart Intercivic and Dominion had similar software upgrades in the same time frames without backing them up. Cybersecurity experts agree there's no reason why these should be illegally deleted. This is similar to what happened in Mesa County, Maricopa County, and most definitely more Washington State counties will be added. I want to say a big shout out. There's so many data analysts, patriots that want to stay anonymous that are doing this hard work with public records where it's hours a day. of a year, year and a half now. And there's patriots all over the state. Do you know that in one chat group, there's like 4,000? In one Telegram chat group, election integrity. There are so many people working behind the scenes. And I take it a little personally when some people say, we're not doing anything, you don't care. But they have no idea how much work it takes to get public records requests to get to this data. This is information via emails. It takes months. Some of these are taking 6 months to get public records. It's just a lot of work, and we owe a huge debt of gratitude to these people. Now, what are these people saying? Give you some examples. What are they admitting? This is the Whatcom County Prosecutor's Office. Once we upgrade to a new version, the web activity log is no longer available. We upgraded in 2021 to a new version of Clear Ballot, so any web activity logs that are needed for elections before this date will not be available. These logs are not part of the system backup, so they aren't available there either. This situation has not been verified. It has been verified with a vendor. Do you see how creative they are? They don't want to say they deleted them, but they did. And a lot of them, they admit they deleted them, but they have deleted them. Next one. Skagit County, I think they get the most creative answer. They won't admit that they delete them. They say, we do not have the log, and it's not a log we use. Our office upgraded to Verity last year. We do not currently have a machine that would allow us to reinstall the 2020 election. We're not asking for that. We're asking for the log, but this is their answer. In order to do so, we would have to pay Hart InterCivic to build a machine with a version of Verity required and have it shipped to our office. We're not asking for that. We're asking for the log. That's their answer. Yes. Yes. Let's get to Mason County. Wrapping it up real quick. So this is Mason County's answer. Clear Ballot sent out notifications to remind customers, including Mason County, that certain data needs to be backed up or will be wiped upon update. Backup notifications sent by Clear Ballot failed to include a reminder. It was Clear Ballot employees that did the update. They failed to show the instructions in the manual. So what did they say? What was their answer? The web activity log, this is from Clear Ballot saying, beware, they're obviously afraid of being sued. The web activity log was automatically cleared upon update. The web activity log was not backed up prior to certification, and the Mason County team was not instructed by Clear Ballot. The step of backing the log has been added to the checklist. Do you feel better about that? I don't. I'm going to go through these real quick. We're almost done. Early voting. Okay, see, this is one of the graphs, and this is going to tie right into Dr. Frank later and Sean. So this is Mason County. It's very important information. Ballots are scanned in batches of 150 or less. The blue are Democrat votes, and the red are Republican votes. As you can see, this is Trump and Biden. The longer the line, the larger margin of victory. There is no reason to have this. This is not statistically, this is not how human beings work, where you have every Democrat preloading. And this is consistent in many, many, many counties. The Democrat votes are going quicker, and it gives a margin of victory and a jump start to Democrats. Last slide here. This is another way of looking at it, and it's a stair step. So it's the same data, and you can see, as Dr. Frank says, that's not natural. These are things that we want to we'll continue on with the discussion, and I'd be happy to afterwards answer questions with Q&A, and afterwards I'll be available. I know I'm over time, so we okay? Okay, so the batch data, let me just go real quick. So they're scanned in batches of 150 or less, okay? So this is just, remember, just Mason County. So the vote totals for each individual batch scanned heavily favors Democrats. This is not a normal phenomena. Why would it look like this unless there's a potential preload? Now, it's hard to see the dates. This is before election, so it starts October 16th. And where the green line is there, it goes to the 23rd of October. This is scanning batching before tabulation. This is a phenomena we've been finding in almost every single county in Washington State, something very similar to this. Again, what it does is it gives a jump start to the Democrats, and the margin of victory, it ended up where Trump actually won in Mason County, but it makes you wonder, why is the preload so significant? And then this is the same data, all the same data, what it looks like. This, I actually added this slide, but this ties in, and I know Colonel Sean Smith's going to talk about it. Yesterday, there was a podcast featuring Def O'Donnell exposing Colorado voting machines' predetermined algorithm manipulation and front-loading of votes. And actually, there was in Garfield County, Colorado, a clear ballot machine flipped votes. The same phenomena, as you can see, they start out with a lead, and this is statistically impossible, where essentially the rest of the counting, it's 50-50. There's just no, human beings don't work that way. And the initial start, and this Sean, I'm going to let him talk about next, but you can explain, Sean, and also Dr. Frank, your theories. My theory is what's happening in Washington State is happening in other states, just like 2,000 mules. They can stuff the ballot box ahead of time, they can count them early ahead of time, and there's really not a lot of other explanation except this is a computer algorithm at work. There's no way throughout counting, when the counting is there, that it should be this equal. There's just no way. So they're going to be doing recounts in Colorado. There's a lot of people really upset. And in this Garfield County, Colorado, they absolutely flip votes. At 1 in the morning, the 3 candidates for Secretary of State all swapped positions by several hundred votes. So again, it's a big concern. There's a lot. I'm just giving you a little bit tip of the iceberg. There's so much more data, but this gives you an idea of what we're tracking and what we want to let the auditors know. It's not acceptable. It's not okay. And we want some answers on this. We have been, a lot of people asking about potential lawsuits. We have been talking to attorneys. It's very difficult, though, when the data has been destroyed and the evidence has been destroyed to prove that vote tabulation has been altered and your vote has been stolen or your vote's been altered because it's gone. So we are doing our best, though, and we might be filing lawsuits here coming up soon. I know I'm way over, so. Sean, okay. Where is he? There he is. So it's Colonel Smith. It was my absolute pleasure to meet him, and I met him also at the Cyber Symposium in Sioux Falls last summer. He's a great patriot. We've turned out to be friends. Sean is one of these guys that's helping so many people all around the states. He's a cyber expert. I'm going to let him give his own credentials, but he's very, very qualified to start the next part of this presentation. Sean, take it away.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. There's a little bit of a latency, so if you sort of echo.
We're working on it.
Okay.
Keep talking, Sean.
Okay. So I should probably preliminaries. So I'm a retired colonel. I have to make that caveat, make it clear I don't speak for or represent the views or opinions of the Department of Defense or the Department of the Air Force, especially now. That's a whole other discussion. But also, I'm not actually a cybersecurity expert. Compared to most public officials, I'm definitely a cybersecurity expert. But compared to the people who I've worked with who really are truly cybersecurity experts, guys like Doug Gould and then tons of them in the military and national security establishment, those guys. I always say they slow down to talk to me and people think I'm being funny, but I'm not. There's a little bit of a latency in the video, so I've got it kind of on the side screen, but I can hear in real time. So if you don't like something I say, it's better if you boo than if you throw something, because I won't know if you throw something until later on. I could already have moved on. Let's see. So I'm supposed to, I don't know if you can see me okay. I'm supposed to, our comm director, our comm media director for Cause of America gave me this ring light thing, but I hate it. And so I don't use it. So I'd appreciate it very much if nobody would tell her that I'm not using it. We could all just keep that to ourselves. So my background, I spent about a little over 25 years on active duty. I was a Space and Missile Operations Officer. I spent a lot of time doing testing of operational weapon systems. So in the military parlance and system of acquisition, the last thing that happens before you allow a weapon system to be fielded or to be procured at full rate production is you conduct operational testing. And the military brings people out of the operational community that is going to use the weapon systems to be the leads for operational testing, because they know that if somebody's going to find the warts and expose the warts, it's going to be you, because you're trying to protect your mission and the people that you've trained and worked with back at the units that you came out of. So I did that for several years. And then my last assignment on active duty, I knew it's a long story, but I tried to avoid the Pentagon, couldn't avoid it. So my last active duty assignment was to the Pentagon, to an office called the Director of Operational Test and Evaluation. This is a presidential appointee, Senate confirmed individual. He's sort of a 4-star plus level civilian in terms of protocol. This individual is responsible, that though he's within the Department of Defense, he effectively reports to the House and Senate Armed Services Committee, and his job is to tell the truth no matter what. So, I didn't want to be at the Pentagon, but it was really the only place where I could survive given my sort of proclivities. The effect of that assignment is that I got exposure even more to threats. And also I should say that one of the things that I did earlier in my career for some assignments was I was, involved in offensive operations, planning them, executing them, directing them, devising systems to execute them. So my job was to negate adversary weapon systems and also to protect our own. So I got very familiar with threats, and then even more familiar when I was at the Department of Defense, up at Office of Secretary of Defense. And then I retired and stayed on in DC for a year at the request of my old boss, whom I respected very much, to help them with some of the work that they were doing. It's called adversarial assessment, where you look at what information our adversaries have gleaned, what they have exfiltrated, and then you try to understand what they've learned from that, what they haven't learned, what compromises have occurred, and what capabilities they have based on what their changes in behavior have been. So in that process, I got even more familiar with the cyber threats of our adversaries, and they are severe. And I say this in all earnestness. If the general public understood the cyber threats facing the United States, our national security establishment, but also all the instruments of national power, including commercial, including communications, including financial sector, and how those are being used against us, and also how we have failed to defend ourselves, and how a number of individuals, many individuals actually in government, have been apprised of that threat and what they were doing and failed to protect us. I think if the public understood, really, there'd be a line of people with torches headed for DC. So having said that, that's my background. I ended up in election integrity by accident. It was I was on election day of 2020. I had already voted in person because I didn't trust mail-in voting, and prior to that point, I literally had read nothing about voting systems or elections. I couldn't have told you any of the procedures other than casting my own ballot. I couldn't have told you a single manufacturer of voting systems, not one, let alone what the systems were comprised of, or anything about the regime of certification or the accreditation of organizations. I didn't know any of it, which is kind of remarkable because I'm a prolific researcher and reader once I start looking at something. So anyway, I read a news story about voting and turnout in Colorado, and it didn't seem right to me. It seemed implausible what they were claiming. So I went to look the data up for myself, and that is a rabbit hole I'm still digging out the bottom of. I ended up looking up information about our voting systems, researching the background, looking at the testing reports. At this point, I've read hundreds and hundreds of technical documents, test reports. And so understand, while I'm not a cybersecurity expert per se, I am an expert in testing of complex computer-based systems. And when I looked at how our voting systems were being tested, at the standards that were being used at the accreditation of the voting system testing labs, of the kind of total inadequacy and incompetence, just abject negligence of this testing and the people involved in certifying the systems, and then the lies being told to the American public. When I saw what was being done, that was the first time I knew that we were in real trouble, and we are in real trouble. I don't want to soft sell this. I know Bill said something earlier about getting discouraged, but I don't ever get discouraged. I just see the fight ahead. So, and I'm grateful to see so many people being engaged in their own governance. I think this, more than anything else, over the last 2 years has grown, and it should be cause for people to be encouraged. So Bill asked me to talk about your voting systems there in Mason County. And what I normally do is I'll go and look up the configuration of the voting systems. I'll read the testing reports and I'll read the manuals. I was already familiar with Clear Ballot. So just to set the landscape for anybody who's not familiar and unfortunately, making it their whole life like I am, the 5 largest voting system vendors in the United States are in order ES&S, and by largest, I mean in terms of the number of jurisdictions in the United States using their systems. ES&S, Election Systems and Software, which is up in Omaha, and then Dominion Voting Systems, which pretends they're a US company, but is really a Canadian company. I mean, they're licensed in the US out of Delaware, and then they have subsidiaries in states, and they say they're a US company. They're owned by Stable Street Capital, but in fact, all their patents are still held in Canada. Their people are from Canada, et cetera. And then Hart InterCivic, which is out of Texas, and then Unison Voting Systems, and then Clear Ballot. So you guys there in Mason County use Clear Ballot. And I will say, and I've told clerks this, clerks in Colorado who were rightly proud that they had defied our Secretary of State's order compelling them to use Dominion voting systems. I said, you were right to use Clear Ballot instead of Dominion. And then I broke the clerk's heart by saying, however, it's like when you're a kid, or at least when I was a kid, and this happened a lot when I was a kid because the kind of kid I was, when I had to go pick the belt that I was going to be spanked with, it was the 70s, so I never picked the belt that had like metal studs on or anything like that. I tried to pick the belt that I thought was going to be the slowest swinging and the softest on impact, but it's still a belt. It's still a spanking. And so Clear Ballot or Clear Vote systems are the least complex in terms of the amount of software, the number of lines of code, and complexity hides corruption. Okay, if it doesn't breed corruption, which it usually does, it definitely hides corruption. So the less complex the system, the easier it is to detect issues. But that's as far as the praise goes that I can give to Clear Ballot systems, because they are very much similar to the other voting systems. In fact, and there's a good reason for that, the principal software architect and engineer for Clear Ballot came directly out of ES&S. So they're not so different. At their heart, they are all very similar, even though they use different sort of trade names or model names or whatever for their functions. They pretty much operate the same way. So I just want to talk about your systems a little bit. And I think they muted everybody there, so there was no echo. But just break in, and if anybody's got questions or you need to tell me that I'm covering something too fast or you can't understand. So your voting system there, your Clear Ballot system. So 2.2, version 2.2 of Clear Vote is the latest certified in Washington State. It was tested against the voluntary voting system guidelines, version 1.0. You should understand that is an extremely old guideline. I mean, there's a lot good in it. It wasn't great to begin with compared to sort of the standards that I'm accustomed to for Department of Defense systems. And I want to make it clear that our voting systems face the exact same threats that Department of Defense weapon systems face. So our adversaries, our foreign state adversaries, have a number of, they have a massive investment and enterprise scale effort underway, and have for more than a decade, to compromise, corrupt, penetrate, and exfiltrate data out of United States systems. They have they're called advanced persistent threat teams. These are, in some cases, organizations that have thousands of employees and workers that are tied into all other state enterprises. These are not script kiddies. These are not just opportunistic hackers. These guys have research and development bureaus. I'm talking about a 12-story building just filled with threat actors, with cyber operators who are doing nothing 24 hours a day but targeting U.S. systems, companies, capabilities. And this is what they do full time. It's like a military base. I mean, they have dental offices and kindergartens and preschool on base. That's the kind of effort we're facing. And they are absolutely targeting our elections, absolutely targeting our voting systems. And I would be shocked, given the fact that we have no supply chain security whatsoever on this equipment, I'd be shocked if they had not penetrated our elections. I don't believe it's even remotely plausible that they have not penetrated our elections. So let me go back then to, the equipment that all of these vendors use is either partly or entirely manufactured or assembled overseas of mostly Chinese-made parts. So we offshored, our manufacturing. There are almost no computer components manufactured in the United States anymore. We still make Intel processors in the United States, although we do it like down at Chandler, Arizona, at the Ocotillo facility, the assembly fabs down there. We do it with a lot of H-1B visa foreign workers. I mean, the BIOS engineer working on the BIOS, the basic input output system, which is like a set of sort of software instruction at the hardware level for computer chips for your central processor. The principal BIOS engineer for Intel at the lab making the computer processors for our servers is a Chinese engineer on an H-1B visa at the time when the processors in your systems and in my systems were made. So, the clear ballot, clear vote system in your county uses Dell servers, like the T630, which was assembled in Mexico. They did not order them with trusted platform modules. Trusted platform module is like a hardware level encryption device that verifies that no spurious or corrupted hardware devices are introduced. The problem is that every single one, literally every last one of the trusted platform modules is manufactured in the People's Republic of China. So you can't trust those either. So it doesn't matter that you don't have them on your system. But your systems, just like many of the systems here in my state in Colorado, also have something called an integrated Dell remote access controller. And I want to talk about this just for a moment, because this is one of the things that if you're a member of the general public, you don't know what IDRAC is, probably you don't know what it means. For me, with my background, what I've seen, my testing experience, what I understand about the threat, the fact that IDRAC, integrated Dell remote access controller, was incorporated as part of the configuration of a voting system component in any of our voting systems, that it was tested with nobody saying anything about it, that it was certified as being in conformance with the voting system standards by the laboratory testing it, and then it was certified for use by a Secretary of State in any state or jurisdiction, is all the evidence I would personally need to understand that the entire regime of testing and certification and oversight for our voting systems is either corrupted or it is incompetent beyond belief, and that we are exposed with no safeguard whatsoever against our vulnerabilities. And the reason I say this is because IDRAC, the integrated Dell remote access controller, has only one purpose. Right? It's like if you had a fire extinguisher, you know exactly what the fire extinguisher is for, and that's the only thing it's for. IDRAC, it has the sole purpose of allowing remote access, configuration, and management of a server. So for a voting system, which is not supposed to have any remote access, configuration, or management, the inclusion or use of any computer that has IDRAC embedded in it is completely unforgivable and inexcusable, and anybody involved in allowing it should be relieved of their responsibilities immediately and investigated. That's my, and I tend to speak plainly. It served me well and my people that I work for well in a number of times, and also, caused me a great deal of pain at other times of my life and career. But so the motherboard also on your server was made, like most of the components, in the People's Republic of China. You have other servers used, not just the election management system server like the design server, but also the scan server in your clear ballot system, again, had IDRAC incorporated. It was assembled in Brazil. And again, the motherboard was made in the People's Republic of China. The significance of the manufacturing overseas is that we have seen again and again this comprehensive, massive effort by our adversaries, in particular People's Republic of China, to corrupt our systems. And they engage in something called supply chain attack or compromise, where because they're in control of the fabrication and assembly of these components, they can insert, backdoors, hidden functionality, and flaws into those components. And some of you may have heard of some of that happening in the software realm with the SolarWinds compromise. That was a supply chain compromise. If you've ever heard the term Stuxnet, Stuxnet was a supply chain software compromise of a driver that was being used in computers that were controlling centrifuges in the Iranian nuclear program. And so that corrupted driver allowed essentially the ineffective use and then destruction of many of those centrifuges, setting that nuclear program back, the weapons program back for Iran. And it's not just the servers, though. Your scan station and admin stations in the clear ballot system. So if you read the test report, it will say over and over again that the system does not connect to the internet or any external system, which makes it deeply suspicious and inexplicable that so many components in your voting system, just like the ones here in Colorado, have been ordered and configured with wireless Bluetooth dual band network adapters. So the scan stations and the admin stations use Dell 5580 latitudes, and they have a dual band Wi-Fi Bluetooth adapter in them. And then the touch screens for clear access use it's a ELO EPS. It's like a point of sale. It's usually typically for point of sale registers, and it uses Windows 10, just like the servers do, or just like a lot of the workstations do, Intel vPro processors, and I'll talk about those, and has wireless cards embedded. So for a system that is not supposed to connect wirelessly to anything or to any external network, it has a suspiciously large number of wireless cards in it. That's what I would say, is that somebody has some explaining to do, and unfortunately, nobody is forcing them to explain it. Our whole regime with the Election Assistance Commission, the Secretary of States, and the trusted sources, all of their messaging is about reassuring us, the citizens, their bosses, about something that is not true. So let me talk a little bit about the ProVNV test report. So ProVNV is one of only 2 accredited voting system testing labs. And by federal law, 52 USC 20971, I think it's subparagraph B2A. So only the Election Assistance Commission can accredit a voting system testing lab. And they do it by vote. So this is the federal statute. So while the test report for your version 2.2 was conducted while ProVNV, how do I start with this? So ProVNV had lapsed accreditation. Their accreditation expired in 2017. It was not renewed by a vote of the commissioners, and therefore by the rules of the EAC, that accreditation had expired, not been revoked, but expired. So when you go back and look at their certificate issued in 2015, when you look at their voting system testing lab program manual, it's explicit and clear that the accreditations that they grant by vote of the commissioners are for a 2-year period. Their certificate said this is for a 2-year period. And at the expiration of that 2-year period, they were obligated, required, if they wanted to continue accreditation, to submit an application package for reaccreditation. And then it was required to be voted on by the commissioners. That didn't happen. As I'm watching the video over here, I should also mention, and I just apologize up front, I fidget a lot with my hand, so it looks like I'm signaling to somebody to steal a base. So I assure you I'm okay. This is what I do when I'm thinking out loud. So the VSTL ProVNV was not accredited from 2017, February 2017 until January of 2021. The report that they wrote for the testing of version 2.2 of ClearVote was written after they were reaccredited. Now it's not clear again that they were properly reaccredited, but let's pretend for a moment that they were reaccredited. So the report was written after they were reaccredited. However, when you read the test report for version 2.2, it makes clear that it did not do all new testing. It relies upon testing conducted while they were not accredited. In other words, it relies upon the testing for the what they call a test campaign for version 2.0, which was reported in September of 2019 when ProBNB was not accredited. In other words, your clear ballot voting system 2.2 has not been fully tested by an accredited voting system testing lab. Okay, so the certification of that system and use in your elections violates what is it, RCW 29.12.080. It violates your law. Okay. Another thing that I want to note out of there, and this is really significant. So most of your election officials don't read the reports. Maybe none of them do, especially the people in the Secretary of State's office who, in my experience, know next to nothing, somewhere between next to nothing and nothing about the cyber security status of these voting systems. They don't understand the threat. They don't understand why the rules in the voting system standards are the way they are. And they don't particularly seem to care when they violate any of the standards. This gets really important. If you read the voting system testing lab report on version 2.2 of your voting system, you will find a note that says, Section 6 telecommunication requirements of the voluntary voting system guidelines 1.0 is not applicable to Clear Vote 2.2 and was therefore not included in testing. Let's just think about that for a moment. This is a system with a multitude of wireless network working cards in it. And the voting system testing lab, the only testing that occurred to verify that your system complied with the voting system standards, including security, including telecommunication security, to show and demonstrate and determine whether or not that system was vulnerable to manipulation or unauthorized access through any of those wireless connections, among many other potential security vulnerabilities. And the voting system testing lab never even tested to see if the cards stayed off or if there was any way to subvert those controls. I promise you there are ways to subvert those controls. As I said at the very first time I testified in December 2020 in Colorado, if you took any of these systems based on what I'm looking at in terms of the components they're comprised of and turned them over to a red team that we use for vulnerability testing, the Department of Defense, they would tear them apart in seconds. And in fact, every single voting system that has ever been taken down to the hackers conference, to DEF CON in Vegas, every single one of them has been compromised, typically within minutes, a few times within seconds, but at the very longest within hours, and sometimes by like 11-year-olds. These systems are not secure. Their components cannot be secured, even if they had supply chain security, which they don't. They can't be secured because they are so complex and so configurable, and because we put them in the hands of public officials who literally don't know what they're doing, right? These are not cyber experts. They don't even understand the questions to ask, let alone the answers to them. So let me come back to that. The failure of the voting system testing lab to test the telecommunications to verify their security at the very least in these systems is like, it'd be like the FAA saying airplanes aren't supposed to crash, so we didn't assess crashworthiness. It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous, and yet this is our system of administration and safeguards right now. It's completely inadequate. It is corrupt. It is a sham. So in the changes, if you read that report, the VSTL describes changes between version 2.0, the previous version, that they were relying upon that test campaign, in version 2.2. Among those are fixed defects. Now, this is fascinating to me because I am not aware of any Secretary of State in any state in the United States that has ever notified citizens that there were defects. So this is, as I understand it, the system that was used in many counties in Washington state during the 2020 election. Did anybody tell any of you that there were defects in the voting system? I don't think they did. I don't think that ever happened. And then if there were defects in the voting system, how did they affect the operation of those voting systems? How did they affect the results? We have no idea. And this gets really important because in order to have an idea, you have to have qualified expert cyber forensic professionals go back through the artifacts from that system, including, very importantly, every single log file the system is capable of generating. Not just during the time when people are actively voting, but the entire time from when it was configured with any software or hardware configuration until the time you're no longer retaining the data on it. Because any time in there, the systems are subject to vulnerability and manipulation and compromise, which could affect the data that's resident in them. So one of the defects that was fixed on the system, which you can see in the report, is that, I'll just quote, previously, the logs would occasionally be corrupted when shutting down the system. That by itself should have immediately, a vulnerability, a defect like that, should have immediately resulted in the decertification of the voting system. So then the question it begs for me is, did the vendor, aware of that defect, apparently, because otherwise why would they fix it, did they notify any public official using the voting system? When did they notify them, and why didn't any public official decertify that system? Now, I believe 2.0, the version they're saying is defective and would occasionally destroy logs. And the logs, by the way, so the logs are required by the voting system standards. And then almost every state, it requires that the voting systems be tested to determine whether or not they comply with those voting system standards, whether it's the 2002 FEC's version or whether it's the voluntary voting system guidelines from 2005, 2015, or 2021. And you guys are, by the way, Washington State requires compliance with 2005. So your two versions of the voting system guidelines behind. You're not even using the most current standards. Even though there have been standards in effect from 2015, you're not using them even in 2019 or 2020. You're still using only the 2005 standards. So the fact that this voting system was known, 2.0 was known to destroy logs or corrupt logs, it should have immediately been decertified, because it's required to be able to generate and preserve those log files in order to be certified and used. It also, the test report also said that 2.2 introduced new COTS hardware, and yet the voting system testing lab did not conduct all the testing. So they introduced new hardware, but they did not reconduct configuration management testing as part of the 2.2 testing. So the testing of 2.2, even if the voting system testing labs were competent and honest, which I do not believe they are either, even if they were competent and honest, even if they were conducting, generally speaking, adequate testing, which they are not, they didn't even test the most obvious requirements that you should be testing if you change software or hardware in the voting system.
Hey, Sean, anything you want to finish up with? We're running out of time here, buddy.
Yeah, I just want a couple other things. So I could go through all the vulnerabilities in the software that's loaded on them, but there are dozens of commercial software applications and programs running on your voting systems. And the voting system testing labs don't test them at all, despite the fact that there are literally thousands of known published vulnerabilities on those commercial software applications. So these are all vulnerabilities that are inherited in your voting system. Nobody is testing them. Nobody has any idea what the vulnerabilities are. And that's just the commercial. Nobody but these incompetent testing labs are testing the proprietary vendor software. So the last thing I want to say is about the logs. Every single election official I have spoken to has said the same thing. Every single one of them is wrong. There's no question what the voting system standards require. If you're using COTS computers, you have to log everything that's possible to log, including from the operating systems, not just from the proprietary software. And you have to retain those for 22 months per federal statute. No jurisdiction in the country is doing this. And the destruction of those logs, because it prevents any hope of really adequately auditing the trail of evidence to determine what happened on those machines so that you could have any confidence in the results coming out of them, that is a violation of the civil rights of citizens. It directly undermines your right to transparency and to confidence in the election results. And nobody should be believing or trusting any election result where they do not only generate and retain those log files, but then have qualified professional cyber experts, independents, go through them to validate that no unauthorized access or compromise or misuse of those systems took place. So I view the destruction of those log files, in the first place, it's a criminal act. It is a crime for them not to generate and preserve those log files. It's a crime under federal law. It's a crime under state law. If a prosecutor does not prosecute those crimes, then they themselves are negligent in their duty. And so the evidence is abundant. That should be happening. But we should not be trusting any election for which those log files are not produced and retained and examined. And the fact that they've been destroyed, for me, is prima facie evidence of misconduct, or at the very least, complete gross negligence on the part of the election officials. Anyone who didn't preserve those files should be relieved of office, and immediately. So we could go into lots of detail, but I think I went longer than I was supposed to. So thank you for everyone who didn't leave.
I want you to hear your applause.
I think we're going to say goodbye to you now.
How's that? My favorite story about Sean, he and I were testifying before the Nebraska Senate. Actually, they have a unicam. And the night before, we met with 9 senators and the Deputy Secretary of State. I was just getting this fired up. And shift, let's see here, function, get my projector going again, there we go. We were with the Deputy Secretary of State, and he explained 70 different ways that he could hack into their election systems. They're mostly ES&S in Nebraska. And then he described, you heard all of his credentials, right? I mean, he worked for years in the Air Force protecting our electronics from intrusions. And he described his autists. He has a whole bunch of autistic people working for him at the Pentagon. This massive number of savants. They're really good at detecting hacking and fighting hacking and whatnot. It's like you can tell he calls them his autists. They're his favorite people. And he explained how for every one of those he had, and he had a number of them, China had 10 times as many that were constantly trying to hack into their systems. And so then he looked at the Deputy Secretary of State and he says, so how many autists do you have on your staff? I just thought that was one of the best quotes I've heard. If the military has to fight that hard to protect our electronics, what makes you think that our election systems aren't already compromised in myriad ways already? And we don't have the resources. None of our states have resources like that to defend our system. So I just love that story about Sean. I've also testified with Sean before I'm kind of changing my presentation a little bit because I didn't know I was going to be doing this, but I'm loving it. I'm zooming ahead here. Yes, this is awesome. Shift F5. Okay, so he and I and John Eastman testified in a secret meeting for Speaker of the House Robin Vos of Wisconsin. And it was supposed to be a secret meeting, but as I was walking up the stairs to the Capitol, I was mobbed by television cameras. There were about 10 stations there. And so it was me, Sean, and John Eastman. John Eastman is probably the leading constitutional scholar in the country. Sean is probably one of the finest intrusion experts in the country. And I know what's going on in our elections. So it was a secret meeting, and we were speaking with Robin Vos, and the first thing was Sean explained about 70 ways he could hack in, and then I was showing them the data for the state. And after about 30 minutes or so, Robin Vos, we're sitting at a small table together, he looks at me right in the eye and he says, Dr. Frank, he says, I just don't believe our elections are hacked. And are just, and I'm like, how can you possibly think that? You have the Gableman report. You have all the evidence. I testified on December 8th with a group of other people in Wisconsin Massive, overwhelming evidence. Sir, how can you possibly believe your election wasn't hacked? And he says, well, we did recounts in multiple of our counties. And every one of those recounts came out right. So I looked at him dead in the eye, and I said, sir, it doesn't matter how many times you count the cash in the register. What matters is how many of the bills are counterfeit. And his eyes go, oh. And it's a good story to tell you. By the way, he walked out of that room and he stood in the front of those 10 television cameras and he told the whole world that there's widespread fraud in Wisconsin. If you didn't hear that, you're not listening to the right news, okay? Okay, that's good, you heard it. That's very important. As I was explaining it to him, I said, look, sir, this is how they're stealing your elections. I said, let me explain it to you. So I showed him these data. These are of his registration rolls from November of 2009 all the way to present. And I said, here's an example. Here are your 3 biggest counties I'm showing as a percentage. So you notice that before the election, they inflate the voter rolls. This is before the 2012 election. They inflate the number of people in the rolls and they vote. And then after the election, they take them out. And then they add people before the midterms, but they don't need to add as many there because the turnout's less. So it's easier to cheat. In a smaller turnout election, you don't have to stuff as many ballots. And then, of course, right before 2016, look at them, they fill it right up again. Same levels as before. And then after the election, can you imagine, after 2016, they removed 25% of the voters from their rolls? Okay? And then they're all back again by 2020. Did their population grow by 25%? No. This is manipulation of the rolls. And the reason they're doing this is that they fill up the rolls with a bunch of people who are not real voters. Because by doing that, then you have a credit line of names you can use to stuff ballots for. Okay, if you saw 2,000 Mules, you're seeing stuffed ballots. That's what that is. So they fill the rolls, they vote, then they take them out. That way you can't get them when you go ask for the voter rolls. You can't, it's hard to canvass, it's hard to find them. They've taken them out. So Speaker Voss, he looks at that and he says, yeah, but Dr. Frank, that's just our 3 largest counties. And so I said, well, let's look at all your counties. Every single county. And that's an important point for you to understand. Every single county in the United States, I've done 40 states. I've been in 40 states now working with legislators at the top level, right down to the grassroots level. Every single county in the United States is being manipulated. You're not the only ones. You are falling prey. So let me I want to show you one other thing, because as I was listening to Sean, I want to kind of dovetail with him. You remember he said that, remember they found the flaws and your Secretary of State didn't get to know? Shift F5. Check this out. ES&S notified 19 states in the summer of 2020 that their machines were hackable. The flaw that was in the voting system was that people could vote multiple times and it wouldn't stop it. Oh my goodness.
Wait a minute.
And in the ES&S's own words, they said it was a hacker's paradise. Okay? And I've got like all these emails, and I don't want you to think I'm making this up. Here's a copy of the email. This one's dated October 15th of 2020, and there's your Secretary of State. You can't see it, it's fuzzy on here, but it says Lori Augino something. It's your Secretary of State person at that time. It's probably in that office, washington.gov. So that's your Secretary of State knew, and if anybody knew that was there, you could vote as many times as you wanted. And you could vote 30 times and it wouldn't stop you. Okay? You see where I'm going? So, and it was a gift, and in ES&S's own words, it's a gift-wrapped opportunity to an insider threat. So all I'm doing is I'm showing you some of the evidence for what Sean was talking about. And I want to show you one more thing, because I'm building on what he did. This is really cool. Let me just show this to you. This just happened. You know, I'm just, it's amazing. My life is amazing. I always seem to be in the right place at the right time. So I was in Oregon last month, and this is just happening. And now I'm the expert, one of the two expert witnesses in this case, with Jeff O'Donnell. Some of you know who he is. So this is what happened. A local citizen said, we would like to have the rolls. This is Washington County, Oregon. We would like to have a copy of the rolls so we can do some canvassing. And the clerk said no. So the citizen went to court and appealed it. The judge ordered the clerk to release the data to that citizen. But just like Sean alluded to in his talk, the clerks don't understand their own systems. These are cumbersome, complex systems. I'm a computer expert. I build electronics for a living, and I'm telling you, they don't understand their systems. In fact, when I meet with clerks, most of the time I have to explain their own systems to them so I can show them how they're hacked. Okay, they don't even know, okay? So anyway, the clerk released the information to that citizen, but she made a mistake. She didn't just give him the rolls. She gave him the ballot images. She gave him the logs. She gave him the SQL database. She gave him all this stuff on the CD. Okay, the Secretary of State found out of Oregon and panicked, okay, and had the AG they're both ladies. The Secretary of State's a she and the AG's a she. I know the difference between an innie and an outie. I'm good in that department, okay? So they're both she's. All right, so the Secretary of State ordered the AG to file a protective order so that the citizen couldn't show those data to anybody, right? Here's a quote directly from the protective order. Are you ready? You have to hear this. Quote, even when systems are not directly connected to networks, they are vulnerable to attack through physical or wireless access. What did Sean just tell you? These systems have all these modem cards, all these wireless access cards all throughout them. Of course they're vulnerable. Quote, if the court enters a judgment requiring the release of the clear ballot, that's yours, the clear ballot database, that judgment would compromise the security of the election systems used in 15 Oregon counties. They have 15 counties that use clear ballot. You use clear ballot. Did your AG admit that your systems can be hacked? The AG of Oregon did. That's public record, baby. That's right in the lawsuit. Okay, that's right in the protective order. So this is the AG of Oregon telling you your system is hackable. Okay? All right, I don't need to show you the rest. You get the idea. I think Sean did a great job with that. All right. Just doing things out of order, but you know, I guess I could do this. I could just continue that theme for one more moment. This report, the CISA report, the Center for Internet Security, they set this up in 2002 after 9/11. We put together this federal agency that protects our internet for us, supposedly, and protect all of our county systems from hacking and malware and all that kind of thing. And wouldn't you know it, the system that they put in place that they have installed on nearly every county in the country has a backdoor, and that was the main way our elections were hacked during 2020 throughout the country. We have all that evidence, and we've talked about that a lot. But anyway, they finally came out. This is the thing that's really annoying. During the election, our machines and our elections were hacked. We have the recordings. It's like a bank robbery happened, and somebody gives you the videos, and you see the robbery happening. You know, we have the recordings of the election being hacked over the internet. We have the internet recordings. We know the machines are online because we have the recordings. How else could we have the recordings? So the weird thing about it is that, well, the sad thing about it is we've been screaming for a year and a half, our machines are on the internet. But what do you hear from them always saying? Machines are not connected to the internet. You hear that all the time. So I have this cool sensor. It's a frequency analyzer. So I go up to clerks and I say, is your machine connected to the internet? Oh no, Dr. Frank, we're not allowed to have machines that can connect to the internet. I say, well, let's just go turn it on and see. Because this will measure all the EMF, all the electromagnetic spectrum frequencies coming off the machine. And I can see, you know, if you were to turn on the hotspot on your phone, boop, 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 I could see it showing up there. If they turn the machines on, not one clerk in the country will let me near their machines with this. In fact, in North Carolina, they locked the building and they actually had a sheriff come and keep me out of the building. They don't want me near their machines because they don't want me to prove that their machines are online. Now, somebody last night, who was it, had just met with the clerk in your county. Was that you? And they said, oh yeah, our machines report the results wirelessly afterwards. Which one? Who? One of the, Laura Lynn did that. She was just in one of the training meetings. So your clerk knows your machines are connectable to the internet. Okay? She's admitting it in public now. So, and she's using the system, exactly. I mean, it's awfully convenient to not to have everybody bring the results centrally, huh? You just go click, 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 and all the results are Wi-Fi'd in. Why not? It's a good way to do it. But notice what's happened. They lied to everybody for a year and a half about the machines not being connected. Okay? But now they're being dragged kicking and screaming. I especially love it that this guy has to eat crow because he's a snake. SOS, Secretary of State Ashcroft. I've met with him multiple times in person. I've met with about 24 Secretaries of State so far. In fact, I spent all day Sunday with the Secretary of State of Louisiana, and I keep checking my phone today because he has a big press release today to announce some really good news. I'm not allowed to say what it is, but it's really good news, okay? It's really good news. So, but anyway, you know what's particularly good about him? I'm rambling a little bit here. I'm off topic. I have limited time, so I have to be smart. But he's the president of the Secretary of State's Association for the country. So to have him coming out and saying 1, 2, 3, 4 is big. It's going to have a lot of weight across the country. This is, and what I think was the final tipping point for him. He said, oh, Dr. Frank, we use really secure networks in our state. And I said, oh, okay. I just said, conference call. I called my hacker. I said, tell me about Louisiana. Long story short, he was hacking into the system while we were talking. Okay. Oh, no, that can't happen, Dr. Frank. Okay, what's his username and password? Okay. I mean, I think the biggest problem is that our government officials, they may have good hearts, they may be smart, but they're not cyber people. They have no clue what they're doing. And they think their systems are secure, they're not. Or they're dirty, and they like having systems that are manipulatable, okay? But anyway, that's big. This is a picture of one of the ones that was in the Matt DePerno case in Michigan. It's a Tellet chip. It's about big as a couple of your thumbs. And it has Bluetooth, it calls the cell towers. So remember when Clinton says it depends on what the definition of is? So when they say the machines are not connected to the internet, they're sort of right. They call the cell tower. See what I mean? That's cheating. Yeah, and sometimes they'll say, oh, they're air-gapped, Dr. Frank. Like your phone is air-gapped, right? It's not connected. Just because it calls through the cell phone doesn't mean it's not connecting to the internet, right? All right, so anyway, that's one of those. All right, who's going to apologize to Mike Lindell? That's what I want to know. Okay, he's a good guy. I've spent a lot of time with him. There's a big event going to happen next month. Actually, it's August 20th, and there's a new movie coming out called Selection Code. It features Tina Peters, who, by the way, I'm the one who red-pilled her. I've met with hundreds of clerks around the country. I showed her, you have to know the story. So I sit in the office with her and I show her all the data for her state, how it was being hacked. And she said, Colorado, Mesa, Colorado. This is a huge case. So I show her how everything's being hacked. And she said, Dr. Frank, this and this and this, and we're arguing for about 30 minutes. And I said, okay, finally I just said, well, here's a list of 2,000 dead people who voted in your election. And she said, that can't happen. And why not? Well, we have signature verification. And I said, well, those dead people have really good long hand. So she calls in the signature expert for their county, the person who trains all the people that do the signature verification, because they do it by hand. And I've heard this so many times. The clerk goes through all the dog and pony show, how they're secure this, how they train this. And they even train twice as many screeners of this as they need because they know that people fatigue. And this goes on and on for like 5 to 10 minutes. And after maybe it was like 5 or 6 minutes, I don't know, she said, the lady says, and by the way, when somebody starts rejecting too many signatures, we replace them. And at that moment, Tina Peters' mouth kind of fell open a little bit. She excused everybody from the room, and it was me and her, eyeball to eyeball, and she says, okay, now I know how those 2,000 people got in. What do I do? And I don't think she was completely sold on all the fraud that we had found, but it started a process of investigation where we uncovered all the fraud. I said, look, at the minimum you have to do, you have to back up your systems. Just exactly like Sean was talking about. We need all the logs, just like Bill was talking about how they deleted all the logs. So I put her in contact with a team of people that came in and they backed up all of her systems. They didn't just bring up a disk and back up the files. They do what's called a forensic image. It copies every bit and byte on the machines, okay? And then Dominion in her case, came in and reprogrammed the machines for their election, which was about to happen. I was there in April. Their election was in May. And then we sent in our team to do forensic images of everything after the election. So we have before and after. We actually have some during too, but that's a longer story. So we know everything that was happening in those machines, and that's described in this movie. And it's a long story, and I don't want to get you into the weeds. Basically, the machines are stealing the elections, okay? And we show how that happens and what's going on. And because of that, we are now able to go into every state that has Dominion machines and file legal injunctions against use of those machines. We have the evidence that the software in the machines itself is functioning to steal the election. So therefore, if you're a candidate in an election, why do you want that machine used in your election? You don't. So candidates are filing legal injunctions against use of the machines in their elections because we have the evidence that they're fraudulent. Get it? We've done 2 states so far. We've got them filed in Arizona. Kerry Lake and Mark Fincham are the plaintiffs in that lawsuit. Kerry Lake's running for governor, and Mark Fincham is running for Secretary of State. That's one. We've got in Alabama filed already. South Dakota's imminent. And we have about 10 more in process. And you could do that. If you people in your own county, it doesn't have to be statewide, you can say, hey, I just watched this talk. The AG of Oregon has admitted our machines are hackable. I don't want those machines used in my elections. I want to protect my sacred right to vote. I want those machines not used. Okay? You could file an injunction in your county. Why wouldn't you? Why do you want to use a machine you know is hackable? So get them out of your election. So file your own injunction. But we're going to try to file one too. You're just not in our first batch, okay? But in the meantime, you could do your own. You don't need us. All right, get her done. And that's the Mesa 3 report. That's the report where we show how that's being done. That's big news. Now, I need to tell you this story because you need to understand this. This is super important. When I first started this work back in December of 2020, I was working with the Pennsylvania State Legislature. I was still operating under the mistaken notion that if I showed them fraud, they agreed that there was fraud, they agreed with how the fraud was occurring, that they would take action. I was thinking that way, okay, in 2020, okay? When they didn't, I was devastated, okay, because I thought, gee, how our legislatures don't want to fix the problem. Isn't that what we put them there for? And then I was in 2 of the lawsuits out of, guess where, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, which is one of the most corrupt in the country. And 4 of those 4 Supreme Court lawsuits were from that county, and I was witness in 2 of those. And then the Supreme Court rejected that. Oh, I was devastated. Our legislatures aren't going to fix it. Our courts aren't going to fix it. What are we left with? Us. We the sovereign. We the people. We're the real government. We're going to have to fix it ourselves. And that's, ever since then, that's all I've been doing. In fact, that's right when I met Michael and Dell in March of 2020. And as soon as he saw the work I'd done, he made 2 movies about me. One called Scientific Proof and one called Absolute Interference. I'm only about 30 minutes of the movie in Absolute Interference, but the Scientific Proof is about the work that I had done. So anyway, but I need you to understand something. They don't want to fix the problem, but it's even worse than that. So I was in Kansas, red Kansas, Republican Kansas. Okay, you think of them as like way conservative, which they are, but their legislature is not. And let me illustrate it. So the only reason I got to testify here, by the way, was because the people had risen up. The citizens had demanded that Kansas hear my evidence. So they accepted me in for an hour and a half testimony. It's all televised all around the state, public record, formal testimony before the election committee of the House. I gave my 35 minutes, and then they started into me, and they were really nasty to me. One of the election people slammed his fist and goes, "Who's paying you to do this?" And what was so cool is, by the way, I'm not charging for being here. I don't charge for anywhere I go. I'm totally paying for this all myself ever since the beginning. I've done some projects for Mr. Lindell, and he's paid me for those. But I don't do this for money. You just pay for my plane ticket. That's all you did. So donate some money to Jen, help her pay. Okay. But so he says, "Who's paying you to do this?" So I just turned around, and there's like 30 citizens in the hearing room, and I said, "These people bought my plane ticket. That's it." It was awesome. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I just love that moment. It was a great moment. But anyway, so what happens is I testify for 35 minutes. They launch into me to pick me apart. And then this lady, she's a freshman legislator. I'm finding the freshman legislators across the country are the ones that are leading this charge. And I think it's because they haven't been there a long time and they're not corrupted yet. Okay. But anyway, she says, "Gentlemen of the committee," she says, I just became aware today, it was like a Thursday morning, and we were testifying, she'd only just heard about this, of these two reports. Here's one data from 2018, and here's one data from 2020, and they're being distributed to the 12 people, and she's talking to them while they're being handed out. And she says, these two reports were commissioned by our committee to our own House Research Department. The Kansas Research Department for the Kansas House prepared these two reports. They were on election integrity in Kansas. One dated 2018, one dated 2020. The one in 2018 showed all these vulnerabilities in our voting systems and listed a whole bunch of fraud we were already experiencing in 2018. And this one from 2020, and she's going flip, 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 flip. Everybody turn to page 7. Look at that list of bullet points. She says, that's almost word for word what Dr. Frank just told us in the last 35 minutes. That was like a slam dunk for me, right? Because everything that I had told them was exactly what was in their own report. It was perfect. I thought, hooray, I win. Kansas is going to change, you know? This is why I'm telling you this story. The very next morning, and I'm not exaggerating, the very next morning, the Kansas legislature voted on a new redistricting map that eliminated her district. But wait, Dr. Frank, they're Republicans. This is not a Republican-Democrat issue. They're just as bad in Kentucky as they are in Washington. Okay? This is not about evil Democrats. This is about the first rule of government. You never, ever, ever, ever give government power. If you give power, they'll never give it back. Even for 3 weeks to flatten the curve. You never give the government power. Okay? Okay? I mean, how many weeks are you guys out under now? Yeah, you get my point? Our governments own our elections. What did Bill just describe to you? He just described to you all this laws they're passing to make it even harder for you to know what's going on. Why do you think they're doing that? When I was in South Dakota, the day I'm always in the right place at the right time. I was in South Dakota. That was the day the House legislature passed a new law making it no longer a felony to do election fraud. They downgraded it to a misdemeanor. Why would you downgrade election fraud from a felony to a misdemeanor? Why would you do that? Are you getting the idea? Our legislatures are not going to fix it. Now, I'm going to run out of time, so I'm going to jump ahead because I know they want me to show some data. But I think I've given you the feeling. There's good news happening all over the country. Let's just talk about 2,000 Mules for a second. Okay, so how many of you have seen 2,000 Mules? Oh, good. All right. I love this movie, and I don't like this movie. I was with Dinesh D'Souza last week, and we had a little discussion about it. He's a good guy. I don't think he meant any ill or anything, but I'm going to explain something to you. Okay, so what you need to know is when people are stuffing ballots, I mean, I love it. You know what I like best about the movie is my favorite thing about it was Prager. Prager, he says, oh no, Eric Metaxas. Eric Metaxas called Prager a coward. That was my favorite part. Remember when Prager says, I'm agnostic on the topic of election fraud. Remember that? What a doofus. Come on, anybody who's looked into this knows there's like massive fraud. I mean, you got all these reports all over the country. But anyway, I just loved it. By the end, he was converted. Yeah. What a dork. Okay, but anyway, so Eric Metaxas called him. But what I love about the movie, though, is that it shows what I've been telling everybody's been happening for 18 months. When people see it with their own eyes, it's like, okay, I get it. Okay, they're stuffing ballots in the election. But what's missing, what they didn't talk about in the movie, and it's the most important thing, if you get this idea, you'll understand how they're stealing our elections. Here's the idea. Every one of those pieces of paper has to be assigned to a name. How do they know which name to assign it to? Well, there are a couple ways. One way is you need to know everybody who's voted. If you know everybody who's voted, you know everybody who didn't vote. Yes? So you can vote for that person. You can print a ballot for that person and stuff it. Okay? So what you're seeing here is the symptom of the steal, not the actual steal. You get it? The ES&S flaw I told you about allowed people to put in multiple ballots for one person. Well, what happens is the software in those poll books reassigned those votes to other voters. And it needed to know which people hadn't voted. It needed to know which people were not likely to vote. You get it? So the thing that you need to understand, this is beautiful. Thank you for showing that, Dinesh. Okay, this is the cover-up. Because the stupidest way to steal an election is to have a machine flip a ballot. Everybody thinks that the machines are changing a Biden vote to a Trump vote or something like that. That's a dumb way to steal because all you have to do is recount afterwards, right? What you need to do is you need to know where you stand during the election. If you know what the tally is, and you know who's voted and you know who's not voted, then you know who to stuff for. Then you can win the election. That's how you steal the election. So before the election, they inflate the rolls. Like I showed you in Wisconsin, those people vote, they take them back out of the rolls, so it's hard to find them again. But during the election, they are monitoring who's voted and who's not voted. That's why mail-in voting is stupid. Stop doing it. Do an initiative. Do a citizens initiative. Thank you for that. Do a citizens initiative. Do you know the USPS takes particular pride in tracking every ballot? Did you know that? And politicians know this exists. You can buy a subscription and it'll tell you every ballot that's been mailed, to which addresses. And then it'll tell you which ones have been returned. The USPS legally will sell you that service. Who wants, if you're a politician running for office, you don't want to call somebody that's already returned their ballot. You want to call the people that haven't returned their ballots yet, right? But that's a great service, and if you're a politician, was that my alarm? Yeah. Okay. All right, I'll wrap it up and we'll move on. Okay. If you're a politician, you want to know that list. The problem is if you get to know it, so do the bad guys. See what I'm saying? So you need to make this politician sweat it out like the rest of us. It's too easy. Okay. All right. Let's see let me show you something. One piece of data and we'll call it. Because you need to know how you fit in versus the rest of the country. Normally I have like an hour and a half. But that's all right. I get to be MC, which is fun too. All right. I'm going to show you an interesting piece of data. Because tomorrow you have to explain this to your friends. So I'm going to make it really simple math. Are you ready? Really simple math. This is the number of people who are old enough to vote in every state in the country. So it's Washington over here. Looks like you got about 6 million people old enough to vote in your state. Get it? That's how many people are old enough to vote in every state. That's just from the U.S. Census. This is the number of people who are registered to vote in every state. And then you'll notice over here that looks like you got about 85% or so of your people registered to vote, I'm guessing. Something like, am I right? You would know, Pat. You're good at this stuff. Yeah. And by the way, if you go knocking on doors and canvassing, you're not going to find 85%. It's going to be like 60, 65%. And you ask any clerk in the country, they always say the same thing. Oh, yeah, we have about 65% of our people registered. Yeah? Something like that. Okay. But look closely. 7 states have more people registered than they have people. Think about that. They have more people registered than people. Okay? You know those rolls are no good. Why wouldn't they clean that up? Well, because that gives the bad guys a credit line of, you know, they've got all these voters that are not really going to vote. They can use those names in the election. So I can also show you the percentage of people that vote in every state. But let me just show you this one graph, and then I'm going to call it, because otherwise I'm going to get the hook. And I'm the MC, how I got to give myself the hook. Okay, so I'm going to give you a 2-axis graph here. I showed you a 1-axis graph, and I'm going to show you a 2-axis graph. I'm a math teacher, right? It goes from 50% to 120%. This is the percentage of voting age people who are registered in a state. And then the y-axis goes from 40% to about 85%. That's the percentage of voting age people who voted. So, like I said, it should be about 60 to 70%. That would be normal. That would be what you find from canvassing, the percentage of the people that are registered to vote in a state. And this is, of course, if it's more than 100%, that's just stupid. Right? You can't have more people registered than you have people. That's something wrong with that. And then on the vertical axis, increasing percent of people who voted. So in other words, imagine a situation where you have a low turnout and dirty rolls. There's probably no fraud in that, but it's dangerous because you have all these unused names that people could stuff for, yes? Or imagine another situation where you have a good, clean rolls, really clean rolls, and a high turnout. That's America. That's the America we want, where you got clean rolls and everybody's voting. That's good. But the situation we're in as a country is not that. The situation is along the diagonal. The dirtier the rolls are, the more phantom votes we have stuffed in our elections. And in other words, this is good and that's bad. Here are the 7 states that have more people registered than people. North Dakota, Kentucky, Alaska, Michigan, Vermont, Maine, and New Hampshire. They have more people registered than people. And look at the turnout rates. Look, Maine has 75% turnout of 103% of their voting age people. Okay, it ain't happening, Captain. Yeah, right. And then here's the rest of the country, and you notice that it travels along the diagonal. And I can show you the details for every one of these states. I could, if I had more time, I'd show you the details for Washington. I have in my previous talks here. Yeah, okay, she's giving me more time so I can jump to Washington a little bit. Okay, but here you guys are here, okay? So you've got about 83% of your people registered, it looks like. No. And almost 70% turnout. No. No. It should be about 55 or 60% in a good turnout election. Am I right, Pat? Pat's my local knowledge guy. All right. By the way, I was just in Oregon. And Oregon they became the 8th state with more people registered than people. They just, in January, because they took everybody off their inactive rolls and put them back in the active rolls. Why would you do that? Because now we have 8 states, okay? All right, so I got to show you something about your county. I'm just going to show you something for fun. Okay, I know I could go on for hours because I love this. I'm just going to zip ahead. You can tell I love this. I'm going to just show you a graph here. Shift F5. This is your county. Okay, it's your county. And the blue curve is the 2019 population by age. Goes from 0 age, that would be a baby being born, up to 110 years old. That'd be pretty good if you make it that far. So I'm showing you the 18 and older all the way through. And then the black curve is from your own rolls, because I have a copy of our state rolls. I got them, this is dated yesterday, because I made it, or is that today? I guess I made this morning for you, since I was new here. But this is dated soon after the election in 2020. This is who's registered to vote in your county. Gee, everybody's registered to vote above about 70. It's just about perfect, isn't it? And then the red curve is who voted according to your rolls. And gee, just about, sometimes you have more people voting than you have people. Okay, but you can see it's almost a perfect turnout for all the old people. And I just think that's ballot harvesting and ballot stuffing. And so that's why we send you out canvassing. Because when you go knock on a door and you say, "Hi, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, I'm from the Voter Integrity Committee. Can we ask you some questions? Yeah, sure. How many people live here? How many people vote? Did you vote in your state? You don't vote in person. You all vote by mail, right? Or did you turn your ballot in? How did you vote? You just ask simple questions like that. And after a couple of minutes, they say, well, why are you asking all these questions? Well, we didn't choose that door by accident because we do some pre-screening. We know where to knock. You knock because I know how the algorithms work because that's what I figured out. So then we say, well, actually, it says here in the voter rolls that there are 6 people that live here who all voted. And then Mr. and Mrs. Smith say, who are those other 4 people? We've lived here 10 years. Who are those other 4 people that are voting from our house? Okay? That's why you need to do canvassing. Because what happens is Mr. and Mrs. Smith now are believers. You did evangelism. They run and tell everybody in their neighborhood about the fraud in their neighborhood, and you're going to find one in every neighborhood, okay? And then you found it with your own hands as well. So now it just isn't this abstract thing that Dr. Frank told you about. You found it with your own hands, and you tell all your friends. You know, it's like the old Breck commercial, right? They tell 2 friends, and they tell 2 friends. This is why we're winning. Nationally, we're over 60% now of the people that believe 2020 outcome was fraudulent. We're winning this, and it's reaching a point where it won't survive. I mean, we the people. Let me finish with this. Let's pretend there was no cheating in the election. Let's pretend everything was on the up and up, and we're just disappointed. Well, guess what? We have over 60% of the people in the country that don't trust our elections. That's a crisis. We have a crisis in trust in our elections, and we have politicians making it less transparent. That's not going to fix the problem. I think what we need is we, as citizens, have to demand transparency in our elections. And I know that there's a local candidate running for auditor that is running for office saying we need transparency in our elections and transparency in our office. But everything you saw, like Bill showed you laws, everything that's happening is to take it away from you. Okay? And I like telling people, you know, you could pay somebody to raise your children, but it comes out way better if you use your own 2 hands. And it's that important that you raise your own. Well, our elections are that important. Everything else depends on our elections. If we've been paying somebody else to do our elections, you need to do them with your own 2 hands. Okay? We need to do it on paper, in person. We need to count them ourselves with our own hands. That's what we need to do. All right, I already took too long, but at least I showed you some Mason County data. I could show you more and more. Okay. All right, thank you. Thank you. All right, let's get this one hooked up here. I get to come back later and answer questions too. And also, I think I get to make little blurbs in between sometimes because I'm the MC. How's it working, Jen? Oh, good. Good. Oh, I could talk to you about sucker bucks. But I'll wait till you're done.
Okay, sounds good. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for coming this evening. I'm the one that has put this on for you.
Thank you.
It was very hard to get to this. Thank you. I'm like you. I'm a concerned citizen. I saw what happened in the 2020 general election, and I was watching across the country. I saw when everything got shut down and then changed overnight. I was a new citizen of Mason County right at that time. I just moved here. I even changed my voter registration to Mason County. And so I was very happy to be here in your county. And what I learned, I went to one of my, I was doing research at that time and just searching, and I found some research groups on Telegram and was working on understanding the machines and how they were not officially certified because the VSTL, Pro V&V, allowed their accreditation to expire, and the terms of expiration were from February of 2017 to February of 2021. I thought that was really weird. Why wouldn't they, when their rules say that they have to get reaccredited by the EAC every 2 years, that just blew my mind. Why would they allow that to expire? I can't allow that I can't even go without having my license be renewed all the time as a professional in my career. So like you, I was concerned and I started doing more research. And then I heard about the Zuckerberg money that came through from Mark Zuckerberg and his wife and Chan. And it was put through, and Mike Lindell jokes about it as being Zuckerbucks. So that's why I've titled this Zuckerbucks in Mason County. But I went and I did more research on the Zuckerbucks that was brought into Washington State. And so I wanted to be able to bring to you today what happened with those dollars that came into Mason County, because our current auditor actually applied for a grant from the CTCL, which actually, I don't want to get ahead of myself too much, but so basically what happened was Mark Zuckerberg and Chan Zuckerberg, they took the money, and Priscilla Chan granted money to CTCL, the Center for Tech and Civic Life, and they granted, originally there was like $300 million granted there, and then they upped it another $100 million, basically, so you have $419 million that were put into our elections across the country. What's that?
Into stealing our elections.
Yeah. And how many of you have been on Facebook and been censored or put in Facebook jail? Yeah, right? Okay, so this money was granted to the Center for Tech and Civic Life, and then it was re-granted to counties all over the country through the Center for Tech and Civic Life. In Washington State, I went on to the website of Center for Tech and Civic Life, and I copied all the counties that received the CTCL grant money, and these are 18 counties in our state that received Zuckerberg money, or the Zuckerbucks. 18 out of 39, that's 46% of our counties in Washington State applied for the grant from the Center of Tech and Civic Life, received the money, and then used it per rules in the grant. The Center for Tech and Civic Life, or CTCL, was founded and launched in 2015, you need to know, by Tiana Epps Johnson. In 2018, she was an Obama Fellowship Fellow. She also is very active, and CTCL is not done working in our election systems. They're ramping up, absolutely. This is their 990 form, which is a public disclosure of what CTCL does. It says their mission statement. I'll talk a little louder. Mike, maybe I can have your...
I'm working it.
Okay, can you hear me now? Okay, so the mission briefly describe the organization's mission or most significant activities. It is to increase civic participation by modernizing engagement between local government and the people they serve. And there's another brief description over here on part 3, the Statement of Program Service Accomplishments. The center's mission is to increase civic participation by modernizing engagement between local government and the people they serve. We do this by 1, educating the public about government and democracy. Are we a democracy?
No.
We are a republic. Thank you. educating the public about government and democracy in the United States, and number 2, educating local government agencies about skills. They want to train our elections departments across our country. And they are training them, by the way. And they're even training them, I'll get ahead of myself, cybersecurity. Scary. Another one of their descriptions here says, the center educates the public about government and democracy in the United States, focusing particularly on local government. The center does this by aggregating and disseminating detailed information about government, candidates for office, elected officials, and voting in the United States in easily accessible data sets. These data sets include information that help the general public find basic information, including what is on their ballot and who represents them. These data sets are freely and universally available to the public. Some of them. Yeah. The Center's Government Services Program educates government agencies about the skills, strategies, and tools to engage their citizens. This in-person training seminars for local government agencies during fiscal year 2021. The center received 2 substantial grants to support the safe administration of public elections during the COVID-19 pandemic and to provide general support. So that's, those are the mission statements and some of the things that they did to help support our elections in our counties. At the county, they are targeting the local county level. Where does the elections belong to? Who owns elections here in Mason County? We do. Okay, so our current auditor applied for a grant from CTCL, COVID-19 response grant. There's nothing wrong with applying for a grant and bringing grant money to help support our departments. It's what we're using it for, okay? We want to know where the money is going, and we want to understand who we're getting the money from and what vested interest do they have in our county. $1,305.74 of, well, let me back up. Did I tell you how much came into our specific county? No. Yeah, $32,903.50. They rounded up 904. So, but so total, when I started looking at the dollars and how they were being spent, they originally spent just $13.05 during the grant project period from when they got till December 31st. And then they waited and they got an extension to add on the rest of the dollars. They wanted to use all of it. If they had not used it by December 31st, they would have had to send all that money back. But what they did was they had another grant. This is just showing how much we actually got, $32,904. This is from that Form 1090 from CTCL, the box down below. Up on top here, this is what our current auditor did to fill out the application for the grant dollars. For what public purposes will your jurisdiction use these grant funds? He said, this is Patty McGuire, our current auditor, he put this on the application, for nonpartisan voter education and temporary staffing. That was his requirement. I mean, that's what he said he was going to use those grant dollars for. Now, CTCL says that these dollars were to promote the safe administration of public elections during the COVID-19 pandemic. So just let that sit in your mind a little bit. So we're looking at an auditor wanted nonpartisan voter education and temporary staffing. And that's good because we wanted to have extra support while we were going through the pandemic. That seems reasonable to me. But I'll let you guys decide as you listen to all of this. In the application, when it came back when we got the contract back saying that we got the grant from CTCL, it says the grant funds must be used exclusively for the public purpose of planning and operationalizing safe and secure election administration in Mason County in 2020. That's the purpose. Number 3 under that said, grantee has indicated that the amount of the grant shall be expended on the following specific election administration needs: nonpartisan voter education and temporary staffing. Okay, so now we have clear communication between the grantor and the grantee. And so then our auditor took that to an auditor briefing minutes with Mason County with the commissioners and let them know that he had 3 different grants that came into the county and actually we had 4. But this one specific, I'm only speaking to CTCL because that's what I wanted to do for you today. The outreach grant from Center for Technology and Civic Life, 32-90350, no local match, prepaid spend down grant. All funds must be expended by December 31st or returned to CTCL. This grant program was announced 2 weeks ago to distribute a gift from Mark Zuckerberg and Amy Chan to CTCL. I applied and was awarded a grant last week. Wow, he got a turnaround in 1 week for a grant. That's amazing. We plan to do 2 countywide mailers to provide voter information about registration and election processes, plus advertising on radio and social media. I'm sorry, what was it? To promote safe administration of public elections during the COVID-19 pandemic, right? Is that matching up how things are going to be spent? I don't know, you tell me. So then, at that time, we had 4 grants in our county. Again, I'm only focusing on the CTCL COVID-19 response grant, but we also had in our elections department the COVID-19 CARES Act grant and the civic engagement grant and the HAVA election security grant. You can see those amounts there. This was what our county auditor had planned for with the dollars from CTCL. This is not what he spent them on, okay? This is what he planned on spending them on. Postage, an 8-page journal. Do you guys remember getting a flyer that was an 8-pager? I'll show you in a minute here. And there's Facebook ads he wanted to purchase. He wanted to buy the buttons. He wanted to do more Facebook advertising. He wanted to do more ads in the Shelton Journal. Lots of ads in the Shelton Journal and some iFiber interviews that didn't go through. So what happened though, we got to the end of the year and we knew that he knew that the CARES grant was going to run out. The CARES grant was going to expire in December 31st. So what they did was they rerouted or changed the expenses, and they took the money that they were going to, all that other stuff I showed you, they moved it over to the CARES grant to cover it. And then they had all that extra 31,000 that they wanted to spend still, because CTCL allowed them to carry that grant for 6 more months beyond the December 31 cutoff. But they weren't going to be able to do that with CARES. So he moved the money or the projects over that he wanted to do from the CTCL money with all the interviews and videos and advertising campaigns and all that, Facebook and things like that. He wanted to move all that over. They moved it over to, apparently, to the CARES grant. I've looked through the CARES grant expenditure reports, and I've found some things, but I haven't been able to find the 8-page mailer. I want to talk to you about that one. So, but in this email exchange that I got from a public records request from our auditor's office, from the elections department, we have Patty trying to get, someone was doing a public records request, a Mr. Mueller, and they were trying to get this information to him and try to explain it. They think we're kind of stupid because the way they say, well, we'll have to explain it away that in language that they're going to understand. Well, I think, you know, we're citizens. We're pretty smart. I think we can trust the people to understand things when they read them. And so I read through this, and Patty says, I suggest going with something like this. This is how they should explain it to this person who requests the public records request. We have attempted to decipher your specific records requests from your general questions about election administration and are responding with the additional records that you seek. It is correct that we did not provide you records regarding the HAVA grants because you did not ask for them. A note about the Center for Tech and Civic Life grant. We received a notice from CTCL extending the term of their grant until June 30th, 2021. As a result, we changed some expenses that had been originally charged to the CTCL grant to our CARES Act grant, which did expire on 12/31/2020. to have flexibility to expend the funds this new calendar year. We will be asking the Board of County Commissioners for authority to expend the remaining CTCL grant funds in 2021. Now, would you like to know what those dollars were spent on in our county? I would. Well, the first $1,305 were spent on Facebook the first year he got the money up until December 31st. Okay, let me just back that up a little bit. Mark Zuckerberg, Priscilla Chan, gave us money through the Chan Zuckerberg Initiative. They put it over to CTCL. CTCL regrants the money to us. CTCL, I'm going to show you this in a minute, encourages us in their newsletters and emails. Our Secretary of State office encourages us as counties to utilize Facebook services tools to educate the people on elections. Okay, so I just want to throw that out there ahead of time, though. So the next bit of that money, starting for 2021, the remainder of that grant dollars that he got through CTCL, he asked the financial to bring over the recording and licensing department and add it into the grant. So they did a remodel of the recording and licensing department. And so that's where the rest of the grant money went. I don't know. I'm just a citizen. I'm just trying to find out what's happening here. What were these dollars used for? And then what happened to this 8-page mailer? Because all I hear about is that this 8-page mailer went out there that was used by the CTCL grant money, but I don't see it here. It's not in this expenditure report. Okay, these are advertisements that were put out that they requested that when they talked to the county commissioners that he was going to use ads to put out to the people to educate us. Here's the ballot drop box location, so we will know where to go to drop off our ballots. Here's Don't Let This Be You. This is the ridiculous ad that they put out, okay? I want you to see the circled parts there in red and down here in the square. Let me tell you what it says. This page was made possible by a grant to the Mason County Auditor by the Center for Tech and Civic Life, a 501c3 nonpartisan charitable organization. No county tax dollars were used in its production. I want to show you, see that video picture right there? This is a YouTube video that was also put together. What I found out in the email exchanges between our elections department and Facebook was that they had made this video and tried to upload it to Facebook. Facebook would not allow it because it had an elected official in it and it goes against Washington state laws. So they spent a lot of money on this video with iFiber and they were not able to publish it. And they only had like 9 people had viewed it when I went to go look at it and take a screenshot. But there's all these different topics they cover. There's like this topic and confidence in the USPS. They were really trying to push the ballot boxes. Let me just drop boxes. Let me tell you that. But so anyway, there's the 2 ads say that it was paid by the CTCL grant. You need to hold on to that thought. All right. Then the other conditions of the grant was that he had to send an expense report back to CTL to say what he spent the money on. In his original report, remember when he had the original application, remember how he said he was doing it for nonpartisan voter education and temporary staffing, right? Did you see that in the expenditure report that I showed you? I saw Facebook ads and I saw a remodel of the licensing and recording department. In the final, the auditors report back to the CTCL in the final response grant report. My red box is off a little bit there, but it says nonpartisan voter education and election administration equipment. So if you go over here to this side, on the bottom, he just put a lump sum in there. He didn't even like break down any details or anything, but the lump sum of that $31,907 looks like 76. That was spent, he says, that's the box that says election administration equipment. The recording and licensing department. Is that the elections department? Okay, thank you. Then CTCL puts in a kind of a puff piece or an article bragging about our county auditor and how great he's been with educating us in our county on our elections, addressing misinformation, reaching the voters through our newspaper, our Shelton Mason Journal. They have this on the CTCL website, and if you look under their news section. So Patty has gotten a lot of great attention from CTCL. Is this a reward for putting CTCL on the literature that was sent out to us, even though it wasn't sent through the CTCL grant? It was sent through what Patty says in the emails and what the elections department said. That went through the CARES grant. That's a totally different grant. If that was sent through the CARES grant, like they say, that should be reflected on those mailers. That 8-page mailer should not be reflecting that CTCL had been a part of that. I don't think I have the picture on there right now, but this is what we're dealing with. CTCL, they are very active in our counties. And I don't know currently how much our auditor has reached out to them to do additional support. I do know that the emails reflect that they have been redoing their website. And the website, there is a new website template that CTCL specifically worked with Mason County on for the elections department. I have email communications from the public records request going back and forth with them about supporting the website template that they gave us as a county. They also offer cybersecurity training, and this cybersecurity training was pushed by our Washington State Secretary of State office. That's this document down in the middle. And they encouraged our counties to do training through webinars. Why? That's what I want to know. Why? And are they truly experts in cybersecurity? Why is it centralizing to one place? Why is this like a one-stop shop with offering all these different services? Right now, the Center for Tech and Civic Life has been focusing on this U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence. And they're trying to get as many election departments signed on to be a part of this all across the country. And I don't know if our auditor has signed on to it or not. It's a great question. We have the power of public records requests. I am a citizen like you are. The future belongs to those who show up, right? I showed up. You guys showed up here tonight. We need to understand why CTCL has such an interest. Why is our county getting all this additional information from CTL? Why does CTCL tell us what we should be doing and give us all this advice on elections and all that? Why are we following that? Does that keep our elections decentralized, or is that moving us more towards a centralization? The elections belong to the people. So I guess I don't have that picture in there. I thought I did. Oh, the mailer. Here we go. I skipped over it. This is the 8-page mailer. Look at this mailer. This is faulty advertising. This mailer says, under the Be Vote, Be Ready there in the middle, this insert and mailer was made possible by a grant to the Mason County Auditor by the Center for Tech and Civic Life, a 501c3 nonpartisan charitable organization. Very charitable, thank you. No county tax dollars were used in its production. I'm telling you, this was not paid for under the CTCL grant. How can you put that wording on there? He should have redone this whole thing. And he did it, it's on there twice. It might even be on there a third time. But that's at least 2 times there that it's on there, that it was paid for by CTCL grant money. It's not under the expenditures for the CTCL grant. I have email communications that says that it was moved over to the CARES grant. But I looked at the CARES grant expenditures and I can't find it. That makes me wonder, who paid for it? And we should know. I don't know. I'd like to see the expenditures. I'm sure you might want to see who paid for it. Was it our tax dollars? I don't know. But it says it was paid for by CTCL. It was not. Okay, that's all I want to say about that. Okay.
Did that actually go out?
Yes, that went out to the people. It was a mailer in the journal.
Can I say something about
Yeah.
CTCL?
Yeah.
So we testified on December 8th in Wisconsin. CTCL paid for development of a ballot harvesting operation in Wisconsin in 5 counties. They developed an app that people could use on their phones to do ballot harvesting in neighborhoods. We have all the email communication between the clerks and CTCL because we subpoenaed it. So CTCL is not just passively saying we want to educate people. They're actively involved in engaging in the elections and enabling ballot harvesting. But let me say one more thing. There's a county in North Carolina, Surrey County, you know Mayberry with Mount Pilot, that's Surrey. When their citizens found out that they'd gotten the Zuckerbucks, they went to the county commissioners and said, you have to send those back. The commissioner said, no, we already spent it. And they said, then you have to take it out of your budget and send it back. They made them send it back. It's the only county in the country I've met so far that made them send back their bucks. Why don't you make them send back your bucks? You don't want other people messing in your election, especially given the evidence that we've already presented in court and in official formal testimony all over the country showing the CTL is not passive. They're actively engaged in ballot harvesting. Oh, they're partisan.
That right there, isn't that false, being able to put that on
Yes,
there?
yes,
That they're nonpartisan?
yes.
I want to continue on now. We're very excited to share with you a report that was done by the Mason County Voter Research Project, and we have Leslie Peterson, who's going to come up and share the results of
Go,
the
Leslie.
canvassing efforts in Mason County.
But I think everyone's really tired. How about you all stand up and turn around and do the hokey pokey, stretch your legs. All right, very good. Okay, here we go. I'll try to keep this fast. Everybody, thank you so much for still being here. All right, I've been asked to share an overview of our local canvassing efforts. A lot of the people, quite a few of the people here tonight were a part of the canvassing efforts. Okay, Mason County vote, oh, where am I at?
If you send me a copy of this, I'll post it on all my social media. People can get it that way too if you'd like.
Okay, thank you. It's
Yeah.
kind of scary, Dr. Frank. No, yeah.
You want me to do the PowerPoint for you then?
Yes, if you do that, I don't know how to do it.
Yep, you do the notes, I'll do that.
I knew how to go doorbelling. Yes. Okay, the Mason County Voter Research Project is one of many county-specific, nonpartisan canvassing efforts under the umbrella of the Washington Voter Research Project. The purpose of the effort is to help county auditors keep voter rolls current and correct. The technical team developed a list of 2,674 potential voter anomalies out of a little more than 37 votes that were cast in the 2020 general election. Another technical team member then built walking books with 544 addresses of the most likely anomalies for our teams to investigate. The Mason County Voter Research Project had the list of potential anomalies and a walking list, so it was time now to recruit the team. Nonpartisan volunteers were recruited, and once non-disclosure agreements were signed, we, the volunteers, were trained. Training emphasized the importance of respecting residents and collecting as much factual information as practical. Discussion with residents was to avoid any sharing of partisan views, political preferences, or anything that could be construed as accusatory. No questions were to be aimed at discerning a resident's citizenship status. Voters were to be thanked for their time, information, and for voting. Okay, the teams were established, trained, and ready to go. Teams canvassed from August of 2021 through February of 2022. 411 addresses were visited. 239 voter anomalies were confirmed, based on information provided from residents and in some cases neighbors and in a few relatives. This information has been provided to our county auditor for the purpose of cleaning up the voter rolls. It is up to the county auditor to follow up with any corrective action as appropriate. We were just gathering information to help him out. The term voter anomaly, I keep using that. What does it mean? A person who cast a vote from an address where they do not reside, a voter who received multiple ballots for the same person, a person who has registered to vote at a non-residential, vacant, or non-existent address, a person who is deceased, but a ballot was cast for them. It is important to note that a voter anomaly represents potential fraud, waste, abuse, or error. The canvassing team does not assume or assert that every anomaly is fraudulent. Each anomaly warrants further investigation and inquiry in order to make the determination of the cause for the anomaly. The next one. There we go. This is vacant land with no evidence of anyone living on the lot. 4 voters registered at this address voted in the 2020 general election. The next one. 2 voters are registered at this vacant lot for their residential address and voted in the 2020 election. Now, the problem with this is we do have to put down where we reside. And the auditor's department in the past has been known to aggressively go out and register homeless people. They have to, if they live at Neelan Park, then they put down the address of Neelan Park. The problem with this is that it doesn't look like anybody has lived here. There's no driveway, and you'll hear. So there isn't any proof or any evidence that anybody lived here. No driveway, no garbage. As we know with the tent cities out there, people make a lot of garbage. So we don't know, but this needs to be checked out. The next one. 12 voters cast votes using, oh, excuse me, wrong one. 8 voters cast votes using post office box as a residential address. The next one. 12 voters cast votes using commercial mailboxes as their residential address. The problem with using a commercial or post office box for a voter's physical address is that quite often we are asked to vote on issues that are particular to our precinct, like fire district, school district, even our commissioners have districts. It is required by law that we use the street address where we reside. Examples of 239 confirmed anomalies. 11 votes were cast from vacant lots. 64 of the voters at addresses canvassed were completely unknown to the current owner or occupant. 1 voter who was deceased in June 2019 but was still registered to vote and voted in the 2020 general election. It was a miracle. That person was dead. 1 non-citizen who had been registered to vote and did not realize it. I happened to go to this house, and the gentleman, we showed him the names, and he said, my wife and I, we're not citizens. We're working on our citizenship. And she can't vote, and she didn't vote. And he was really quite distressed because he was proud to be working on his citizenship, and someone had cast a vote in her name. The other lady that was on the list, he had never heard or seen before. And she had already also voted from that address. 1 voter who is incapable of voting and under the care of legal guardians, someone cast a vote for this voter in the 2020 general election. The legal guardians were not pleased. Someone took their loved one's ballot, their name, and cast a vote. And they're really quite distressed. More examples of confirmed anomalies. And I'm just going to skip over quite a few of these and just point out some of them. One voter who is registered to vote under 2 different names with unique voter ID numbers at the same address. According to the Secretary of State's records, ballots were cast in the 2020 general election for both the names. One person who neither received a ballot for the 2020 general election nor voted in that election. However, according to the Secretary of State's records, someone cast a ballot in that person's name. 36 voters whose voter registration address is a United States Post Office box or commercial mailbox. Of these voters, one is known to be a resident of Kitsap County. And now we go on to documented comments from the canvassing interviews. Once again, I'm just going to highlight a few of these. We have lived here for a year and a half and have never heard of these 2 other people. She moved to Montana 2 years ago. And then the bottom one here, it's not even on there. This person was a part of our team, went down to Alabama to visit her nephew. And while she was down there, she noticed that he received a Mason County voters pamphlet and a ballot. He has lived in Alabama for 20 years, despite calling our Mason County Auditor's office multiple times and telling them that he is a registered voter in Alabama. He is still receiving ballots.
But they received a ballot from him, yes? These are all voters.
I don't know for sure that this person actually,
Okay.
he received a ballot, but he did not vote it and turn it back
But all
in.
of these anomalies for people who actually voted, though, I thought you said. Except for that one. Okay, never mind.
Okay.
Yeah.
He has never lived here. I have no idea who he is. She hasn't lived here since we moved in 2017. So these are the findings of our Mason County Voter Research Project. Our research has been documented with affidavits and respectfully submitted to our Mason County Auditor.
Not the affidavits.
The affidavits are not, but the findings are. Okay, very good. Thank you, team. Do you want to put your hands up who was on the team? I don't, maybe not. But thank you. I know there's Kurt back there. Thank you. Curtis. Thank you. Laura Lynn and Sandy are going to be coming up. They have been working for a very long time on our ballot observation, what happens to your ballot when you turn it in. So please come up, and what happens in Mason County when we put our ballot into the mailbox. Do they need to do a hokey pokey again? I don't know. No.
Yeah, we have been ballot observing for what Steve would say is decades.
Generations. Generations.
Generations,
joke.
not quite that long.
Inside joke.
Excellent, thank you.
We'll start with a little bit of a disclaimer here. Nothing we present
Oh, yes.
Nothing we present is intended to imply any wrongdoing on the part of the Mason County election workers. Our observations are intended to show the inability to adequately observe the ballots as they're processed in accordance with the laws of the state of Washington. But this is our experience of observing the processing of ballots in the 2020 general election. All of these photos are from October 30th, 2020.
What you're about to see was shared with commissioners, our prosecuting attorney, and our auditor in a frantic situation that we did not want to go through. Another election closed out of the offices. Okay, thank you.
Which one? This slide just very quickly goes over what the duties of the election observer are. This is taken out of the manual for the Mason County Ballot Observer Training. And it also, the goal of training is that you're knowledgeable on the different aspects of ballot processing.
These pictures you will see in the slide will demonstrate how inadequate it was for observers to fulfill these goals and duties in the 2020 general election. And I will say it is still considered a valid way to observe.
Because of COVID, of course, we weren't allowed because of COVID and the auditor's decision, we weren't allowed in the actual room. So we could view the ballot processing on a computer monitor. You got your screen was split into 4 quadrants, 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number 4 is called the sorter room, and actually that's where we're going to start because ballots come into that little room first, and then they move on to the other stations. So even though it's number 4, that's where we're going to begin.
This was also without any audio, and it was usually on our little computer screens. You're seeing it on a really big screen. This is the starting process of providing ballot security and fraud protection. This is where they bring the ballots into the auditor's office, begin the sorting and the sealing and the counting.
2 people are required to go out and get the ballots. When a drop box is emptied, it's put into a blue bag, and the blue bags are brought into this tiny little room. And do you see in the upper, I have to do my
Left.
Yeah, the upper left corner, there are actually 2 people in that room. You can see the very top of someone's head. That is the person who is breaking the seal on the drop box bag and emptying the contents completely off camera. Very inadequate. And a little while later, you can see, I had to work to get that picture of just the top of his head. And you can see later on someone actually comes in to talk to them, and they're both standing there talking to what would appear to be an empty corner if you didn't know there was someone in that corner.
Okay, this is where the activities of signature checking begins. This is the only activity in the auditor's office that has one person solely making the decision of whether the ballot is approved or not approved, or the envelope is approved or not approved. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. I didn't know.
I'll repeat for the benefit of the audience. You moved out of state for a period of 3 years, and during that period of time, you continued to receive ballots and ballot information from Mason County. Were you a registered voter in that new location? You were, okay, all righty. We hear that story many, many times.
No, that's hard. Anyway, during the signature checking, what they do is by themselves, they will look at the signature and look at it against their screen that has a signature on it and determine whether that is the signature they agree on. That person will then decide whether the envelope goes on or if it is rejected at that point.
And we heard the comment in another state where if there were too many rejections, the signature checker was replaced.
Yeah.
I can't say that that happened here. I do not know.
Anyway, as you can see at the arrows where their backs are to you, you cannot see them do the signature checking. And even today, when we're in there, we can't see them do the signature checking. But we can see what basket they put them in, so we know which one's rejected and which one's accepted. More on that one.
And it wasn't until some time later we were under the assumption that there were 2 signature checking locations. It wasn't until some time later that we realized there is a third one completely off screen. That's why that arrow is pointing off to the side. Now, that station is not used full-time, but it is used during periods of heavy processing.
This is just more examples on the circles are actually where they're doing these blind spots on signature checking. So obviously, sitting in our homes and looking at this, we could not be adequately validating what was happening during this election as observers are supposed to do.
Yeah, that's trying to show signature checking number 3. Oh, you like this one. This is
Oh,
the
I like
center.
Okay. Okay, this is the beginning of the opening process. As observers, you will look to make sure they turn it down so they don't see the signature. We've got some of our workers in here. They don't see the signature before they open it, and then they begin to open the ballots and make sure all ballots are put in security sleeves. They take the security sleeves and they shuffle them like a deck of cards, and that way the vote is protected because the name did not go with the vote. And in this situation, that little table you see is where all that is happening. And we can't possibly validate that that's what we saw, obviously.
Yeah, go
Anywhere in that.
Important to notice you had something on that damaged ballots are duplicated.
Yes. Yeah.
That should be 2 people doing that.
Yeah. Actually, that's true. At that particular time, damaged ballots, and they have to be really damaged now because they go through the scanners really easy. But if there was a damaged ballot, they would have to have 2 people doing that, and that is now more at the end of the process here. They don't have actually doing the damaged ballots much. It's okay. So anyway, this is the part where they actually reconcile and take care of damaged ballots now because everything's screened. No matter how conditioned the ballot's in, it still gets screened. So this person that this lady is talking to, this person that you see the head of, is actually looking at votes, making a determination of what the voter intent was, and altering the vote to go into the scan. And there's nobody there that can possibly see or hear what she's saying or doing.
Yeah, again, it's just another example of the blind spot, another blind spot. And so this is just a photo that we were able to pull up that kind of shows.
You mean only one person is doing adjudication?
No, there's.
No, that lady standing behind her.
Okay.
Push her back up.
Yeah, yeah. There's supposed to be 2 people deciding and agreeing, yeah, that was a vote for so-and-so.
Right, right.
Okay.
And so this shows that literally in every aspect of ballot processing, there were significant blind spots, and everything was too distant, too small, that, you know, as a ballot observer, you know, I can't validate that processes were done as they should be. So.
The examples, issues, and anomalies identified here tonight all support the need, as we had said in this originally, for a full forensic audit of the 2020 general election. And we hope investigation goes on further and that we see that in the future, our need is great, that we have to observe all processes. We now know it doesn't begin when the ballots come into the auditor's office. It begins out at the ballot box.
And to prove that, to show that, you're gonna.
Yeah.
Do we finish this one?
I actually, what she's showing you here is I have a sign-up list if you want to be a ballot box observer, or if you want to be a ballot observer in the auditor's office. Leslie's showing this. We do have, how many of you have seen
2,000 mules.
2,000
We
mules?
had a lot of hands earlier.
Okay. You're about to see Mason County's, what we believe is an example.
That's what this is.
Do we want to turn out the light or
Turn the lights
dim the
down.
lights?
Can someone dim the lights, please? And do you want to explain it?
Yeah, I can do this one. This is just a 1-hour window that we were able to look at. So we're not making any claims about what happens here. But having seen 2,000 Mules, you'll recognize some similarities here. She's walking up with her dog. She's going to reach into her pocket very soon. Oh, she already has reached into her pocket. She's taking a picture of her ballots. Yes.
They're $10 a piece. She gets paid $10 a piece.
Yes, whistleblowers have said they get paid $10 a piece. So she has fanned her ballots to get the proof that she requires, much like your Amazon driver does when he leaves a package at your house.
Yes.
Okay, now we have a, no, we're going to have a person.
That's a different one. I just continue. I extracted this for her. I just gave you the rest of her leaving.
Oh, okay, so she's leaving. We're about to have
But wait a minute.
a second walk-up.
Watch
This man
guy.
here,
Yeah.
he's approaching. The guy at the edge of the building. We don't care about the one in the blue car at the moment.
That person's paying their taxes.
Yeah, that's the assessor's box. And being October 30th, it was a busy day for the assessor's box. Okay, so now here's our person walking from the corner of the building. He's hanging out there, not really sure, can't be clear what he's doing.
He's taking
Maybe
a picture of something. He's
taking a
of the
picture,
ballots in his hand.
looking at his phone, I don't know. Definitely with something with his phone. He's going to go across the driveway here. And he's going to actually remove his mask. And he's going to
prove it's him.
lick the envelope.
He's taking his mask off so he can take a picture.
And he's
That it's
sealing
him.
the envelope. And now he's going to take another picture as it goes in the slot. Very familiar activities that we saw across the country in 2,000 Mules. Okay? You know, maybe he's a, very excited voter or, What do we see here? White car with woman? This is excited. Oh, the runaway lady. Okay.
Push play.
All righty. So we will have another walk-up here. Oops.
There
No,
it goes.
They have the walk-up lady. Here she comes. She is so excited. She's got a selfie going on here. Maybe she really is. Maybe this is her first time to vote.
That's what we originally thought, that she was just gonna, like Facebook, I went and voted, everyone go vote.
She just can't figure out how to do it.
Yeah, she's really struggling. So now she's trying to get the picture of it in the slot. And now somebody's coming up, so she's feeling a bit hurried. She's going to get it. There.
I like it. She runs away. Right here. Woo, get out of here.
So yeah, she's ready to get out of there now. And the last one is a drive up, and it's going to be this white truck coming in behind the blue one. And when the light gets just right, you're going to see his ballot and his arm extend out the window towards the box.
But first, he's taking pictures right now.
Oh, yeah, I think he's taking pictures inside the vehicle. Now, there goes there. Now he's going to,
He's taking pictures of himself doing
he
it.
has the phone outside the window taking pictures of the ballots as they go in.
$10. Or
He needs it for gas.
Yeah, right.
So that is some very interesting footage.
You got all those just from 1 hour.
That was 1 hour. That was in 1 hour.
And the only reason she has it, tell him how come you had it, that you didn't request this.
Yeah, it was my turn to ballot observe. I was doing it on my computer. It was COVID. I was taking pictures of my computer so you could see what it was going to look like. But I couldn't get the pictures developed because, you know, picture developing was a non-essential service. So I couldn't get my photos developed. So I did a public records request to get the photos, thinking I was just going to get the 4 in the room, and I got the ballot box as well. And so, you know, looked at it early on, but didn't understand the importance of what I was looking at till after we had seen 2,000 Mules, and then things started to click.
Are there, do you know how many boxes in our area that do have video?
Well, that have video, not very many, but you believe we're going to be looking at
You only
that.
have one that has surveillance,
And it's 12 boxes.
and that's it.
It varies by the election.
There's 12 boxes. Oh, yep.
But it doesn't have a camera.
But it doesn't have a camera, so if I was doing that, I'd
The one
Yeah.
right in front of the auditor's office doesn't have a camera on it?
So my question is,
Only one of them has a camera.
seeing the
And that's it, the
pictures
one
of
you
what
saw.
you couldn't really see the details of, was this brought to the attention of the auditor?
Well, this whole slideshow you just saw was sent early in November, early in 2021 to the commissioners, the prosecuting attorney and the auditor, because we did not want to go through another year like this. So yes, it was brought to their attention.
And what was the conclusion from the auditor? Because it's against the law, right?
It is against the law. Yes, it's against the law.
The footage, the last videos that you saw, the walk-ups and the drive-up, have not been shown yet to the auditor.
Oh, that's
That's very new information. But the rest
got
of
it
the
yesterday.
slideshow, they have seen.
But the pictures of the actual process where there's all those blind
Yes,
spots.
they have seen that. They have made some changes.
Yep. Okay,
Still in it.
we gotta move on. We need to be closing up here. I'm sorry, we're running a little long.
We knew we would.
We knew we'd run long. You want me to do these questions now? Okay. Okay. We have 2 questions here. Why do we have to put our signature and party preference on the outside of the envelope?
In a primary, so they can sort them.
Do you want to answer these?
That's a great question. We shouldn't have to. It's ridiculous. And when Mark Fincham came up here last year and he found out the signatures were on the outside, you should have seen him. He was like shocked. He said, "That's crazy. Why would you want to do that?" It's just this is another thing that we got to fix. As far as the party preference, it's only every 4 years for the presidential primary where you have to put it on the outside. It's still ridiculous, but it is once every 4 years. I totally agree. I see some of the people that deliver mail, and I wonder, would you trust your ballot with some of these people? I'm
Yeah, right.
sorry. Yeah, I know. We got to get rid of mail-in voting. I mean, we got to.
Why can't we go back to in-person voting?
Here's one for Dr. Frank.
Okay.
Why can't we go back to in-person voting with ID?
So what you hear, you constantly hear this, we can't do that. It's too much trouble. We can't use hand counting because we'll be counting till Easter. You hear all this. I have to tell you, all of Europe does it in one day, in person, with an ID, hand counted, paper poll books, reported the results that night. All of Europe can do it. Why can't we? Aren't we trying to be like Europe?
I'm just going to go through a couple more things that you need to know about our elections here in Mason County, what happened with the 2020 general. And you already heard from retired Colonel Sean Smith about the machines not technically being certified because the accreditation had expired from Pro V and V. In some interactions, our county auditor decided to engage me on Facebook and challenged me about the accreditation issue. And he informed me that exactly in this case, a test lab's certification expired. The test lab's certification did not expire. It was their accreditation that expired. But he said it was a meaningless paperwork error. It is absolutely no reflection on their ability or
It
their
breaks
work.
the law still, period, end of
A
story.
meaningless paperwork or error. He said, I will offer an analogy. I own a Honda. If I allow my license tabs to expire by a week, it's a minor technical violation. You seem to want to say that all Hondas in the world are unsafe because the tabs on my Honda are
That's a
expired.
stupid analogy.
That's a terrible analogy. This is the sacredness of our vote. Okay, and the other thing I want to point out is that, you know, when I commented, I said, Patty McGuire, a meaningless paperwork error. You are our county auditor. That's an unacceptable statement. He said, Jen Dunkel, the U.S. Election Assistance Commission, and 2 different Washington Secretaries of State disagree with your assessment. I guess he's right and I'm wrong. But I guess then all the literature we have that we've looked at with our research with the EAC, the VSTLs, NIST, all of that, obviously, it means nothing.
Take out an ad in the paper
It's just
and
a
show
meaningless
everybody.
paperwork error. The other thing you need to know, the logic and accuracy test for our 2020 general election was done on clear vote, according to this certificate, signed off by 5 people. It says that we used 1.4.2 software, clear vote software, on the for the 2020 general election, the logic and accuracy test. The actual election at that time for the 2020 general was run on, I believe it was 1.5. Yeah. When we inquired about this by public records request, why were the 2 not matching up? Because the law says that the logic and accuracy test has to match the same software you're using for the general election.
Duh.
It's not matching the paperwork here. Look, it says 1.4.2, but the county acknowledges that they used 1.5 in the 2020 general election.
Without recertification.
They would have had to go back and do the logic and accuracy test again on 1.5 to verify it, that it's all functioning accurately, but they didn't. When we inquired, the response back was, Mason acquired ClearVote in 2018 with the first use of the system being in the primary that year. The initial implementation was blah, blah, blah. The next version was 1.5, and that upgrade occurred on 5/17/2019, the upgrade to 2.1. The version you're currently using happened on 12/16/2020. So then they say the logic and accuracy test addendum form is pre-filled and used for each election. It was an oversight that the form was not the updated form that reflected version 1.5.
Pretty sloppy.
It's very sloppy. If you want to know how we are, what we're doing with our research, we've been keeping all of the research we've been doing on Mason County and other counties that we've been finding a lot of these anomalies on a website called whocountsthevotes.com. So if you want to keep abreast of what's going on, you want to see what we're doing here in Mason County, you can follow it there. We're keeping everything posted there. And then also, we did inquire of the auditor what he was going to do about that, or we wanted to find out what they're going to do about the web activity logs. And the auditor expressed disappointment with Clear Ballot. After a chain of emails back and forth between Clear Ballot and the county auditor's office, it appears Patty is disappointed with Clear Ballot for their lack of ownership over the deleted records. Remember, the county is a custodian of the record, and they are ultimately responsible for preserving these records. Patty was communicating back and forth to the Washington State Association of County Auditors, asking the ones that also had the Clear Ballot systems that also had their web activity logs deleted. These emails were going back and forth, and he sent them this email that he had contacted Rosemary at Clear Ballot, and he told her this. And he's telling this to the Washington State Association of County Auditors that had the Clear Ballot machines. He says, he told Rosemary, I'm very distressed that a company that I had thought was my partner in disclaiming any responsibility for wiping out the weblog. I am currently exploring my options to end my contractual relationship with Clear Ballot. I thought you should know. Patty McGuire, Mason County Auditor.
Who's paying him to switch?
Well, I don't know. This is where we,
Exactly.
citizens,
Exactly.
hello. Clear Ballot's response. We followed up on the statement from Clear Ballot regarding the matter, and we were very disappointed with what they offered. It shows no remorse, and they assume no responsibility. See their statement below. To the Mason County Elections team, from Rosemary Federchek, Clear Ballot Group Customer Service Director, April 18th, 2022. The web activity log is automatically cleared upon a software upgrade. The web activity log was not backed up prior to the software upgrade following the 2020 general election. The Mason County election team was not instructed by Clear Ballot to back up this log prior to the upgrade. The step of backing up the log has been added to backing up this log has been added to the election checklist for future reference. That doesn't help us. So I think this is what we want to look at. We want clean voter rolls in Mason County. We want to be able to observe all aspects of our election in person. We want Dropbox surveillance by video. We've got 12 boxes out there now. Only one of them has video right now. We want to pursue an injunction to stop using the machines. If our own county auditor is telling Clear Ballot that he wants to end a contractual relationship with her because of the vulnerabilities, because they lost web
You got it. You've got every
Right?
justification. You got the AG of Oregon saying they're hackable, and you've got
Yep.
your own auditor saying,
Yep.
I'm ending my relationship. Dude, you're
He
done.
wants to
Boom.
end- yep.
Injunction.
Yes, pursue an injunction to stop using the machines as a county, and let's go back to hand counting the paper ballots in smaller precincts. It's just a thought, okay? We can put that out there. Stop accepting private money and private influence on our elections, such as CTCL grants or Zuckerberg money, etc. And also, we need to pass legislation that makes ballot harvesting illegal in the state of Washington. And then keep our elections decentralized and to Mason County only.
On your own election.
Support the initiatives. If you're here and you haven't signed the initiatives, please sign the initiatives. Or if you're watching this online, get a hold of one of your counties. There's a focal person in each one of the counties across Washington State, and get those initiatives signed. Support we have a petition here, I believe. Is Anna here? Anna, did you want to say we have a petition here for a full forensic audit? Yep, Anna.
Sure. There's a little bit more dumbed down bullet point list of what it's basically about. But basically, this is based on common law. We, the people, have a right to recourse through common law. First Amendment petition for redress of violations to an election system that has potentially been compromised. Pursuant to Article 1, 6, and Amendments 1, 9, 10, 14, 15, 19, and 26 of the U.S. Constitution, the citizens of Mason County, Washington hereby exercise our constitutional protected right to petition government, i.e. county commissioners, for redress of grievances regarding violations of the Constitution of the United States of America and diminishing confidence in our election system. Such demand is further supported by the Washington State Constitution. Whereas the Founding Fathers in all states that have ratified the Constitution have clearly recognized the need to ensure that voters' rights are not to be abridged in any matter, and whereas the Secretary of State for Washington and our county auditor have both declared that the equipment used in the voting machine is and was not connected to the internet, however, anomalies exist to indicate otherwise, and whereas we recognize that specific process and procedures exist within RCW 29A, as well as processes identified by both the Secretary of State and county auditor, we further recognize that such processes and procedures were and are not being followed, therefore cannot be trusted, and wherefore a review of the voter rolls from the 2020 election shows that numerous votes have been cast which contributed to an erosion of trust in the voting process to the point that an election could and should be decertified. Now,
Preach it.
therefore, in accordance with Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, that the states are guaranteed a Republican form of government, that our elected county commissioners are our direct representatives, who, in accordance with Article 6, Section 3 of the Constitution for the United States, have taken an oath to support the Constitution, for the United States, we demand that all county commissioners take action to perform a comprehensive process audit of the election system ahead of the elections for 2022. Such audit must include a number one, comprehensive review of the equipment used and their connection to the internet, along with a review of the equipment itself and any potential to be connected to the internet, along with any changes in the source code on the equipment in the last 4 years. Number two, a full review of the voting system from the time that ballots are printed all the way through to the final counting of the votes cast with reports provided. Number three, a complete review of any and all phantom voters and a clear review of the voter rolls. And it's got to respectfully submitted by whatever date. It's over here. If I could get anybody willing to please sign it. And we'll see what we can do.
Thank you, Anna. The elections belong to the people of Mason County. It is the intent of RCW 29A 6185 with the audit of results. The intent in 2018 is that it's the intent of the legislature to ensure our elections have the utmost confidence of the citizens of the state. In order to ensure the integrity of the elections in Washington, the legislature wants to maximize the security benefits of having locally run, decentralized counting systems in our state, based in 39 different counties. The legislature wants to maximize this locally run benefit by adding options to the auditing process for local elections administrators. Multiple jurisdictions with multiple options for ensuring election outcomes will increase the transparency, integrity, and trust of our elections process. You've just seen and heard from us where that transparency is going away. It's being centralized. The Washington State Association of County Auditors is working hard against the citizens to take our rights away to be able to view those ballots and the systems. It's our turn to show up. This is our election system in Mason County. We the people. The ballots, our sacred vote, belongs to us. It does not belong to the county auditor. I don't care if you have a Republican county auditor or a Democrat county auditor. The votes that we cast are sacred, and our elections do not also belong to the Secretary of State. They belong to us, we the people. Thank you for coming. Do we have anything else we want to say?
Would you want me to do the rod thing?
Yes, we have one last thing that Dr. Frank's going to do for us.
This is a special request, but I have to take my mic off for this, and you'll see why. So I always do this metaphor at the end of my talks because I'm a physicist and I like metaphors. So this is just a piece of aluminum, solid aluminum I got at Home Depot, and it represents America. And I just put a little bit of rosin on it here. All right. So this is America. And all across America, we've been spreading the truth. Whoa. And now the truth is resonating throughout America. The thing about it, though, is that the truth is annoying. And so you have to be annoying. In other words, we all just heard some stuff tonight, right? You have to tell your friends at work. Our election systems aren't secure. We have more people in our rolls than we have people. They're hacking into our elections through our clear ballot machines. All these things you've heard, you have to be annoying. You have to tell all your friends. But I like what Sean Smith said. He's not depressed. He's ready for the fight, right? So that's what you have to do. You have to be annoying. And if you notice, I can make this pretty loud. I've been kind of moderating it because we're inside. But I can make it unbearably loud. And you need to make the truth unbearably loud. Thanks.